Hello, your channel Eugene Light Novels greets you. I hope you are enjoying these beautiful novels. Now, let's continue with the novel, Fairy Tale. Simulation starts with Fairy Queen ERZA. First part. Chapter 1, that is the door to the new world. The town of Magnolia. It is an inconspicuous town located on the edge of the permanently neutral magic kingdom of Fiori. Originally, this town should have remained inconspicuous. But it is famous in the magic world because a Magister Guild was established here. Even though it has a bad reputation. In the year X778, the sky was clear. In a small town, in front of the Magister's Guild, which is notorious in the magic world, a petite guest with striking long crimson hair came. The guest was wearing a neat knight's uniform, which made the beautiful appearance she inherited from her mother even more heroic. "Is this the Fairy Tale Guild?" the little guy murmured and looked up. I saw the big word Fairy Tale written on the door plate of the bell tower that exuded a quaint atmosphere. The whole building seemed to have aged. There were traces of repairs everywhere on the walls. Even the stone steps leading to the guild gate were already stained, covered with moss. Only the door in front of the little guy is brand new and seems to be replaced frequently. This made the little guy curious. She murmured in her heart, and with infinite longing, she gently opened the door in front of her. Then, what came into view? "Hey, Valba. A few days ago, a new bunny girl came to the pub next door. You don't know, those good looks, those long legs, those body curves. TSK, it's really amazing. If you don't go, you will regret it. Mikhail, do you still dare to go to the tavern to drink? Aren't you afraid that your family will find out? Can this kind of thing be said? Forget it, if you are scared and don't want to go, just tell me. Why bother to spoil the fun? I, Mikhail, must have misjudged you, Valba. Hey, for this kind of thing, you must add me. Ha 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 ha, good brothers for life. First of all, there is the filthy young man who has the same smell. No, if one can be called an uncle at the age of 30, then there is nothing wrong with calling them a Madao, abbreviation for uncle who is simply useless. In short, these two moral scum were getting together, talking a little bit wildly, and their laughter echoed in the guild. Tons. Hiccup. Gray clothes. Next to the two wretched young men, there was a girl with long wavy brown hair holding a wine barrel. Her face was stained with a bit of blush. She had obviously drank a lot. In this country, adulthood is defined as 15 years old, and it is clear that in a country that stipulates that only adults can drink alcohol, girls are obviously breaking the law. As for the person the girl reminds, he has short black hair, a handsome face, a temperament as cold as an iceberg, and he is completely naked, wearing only a pair of fat pants. He is a man who uses his words and deeds, the guy who explains what the word pervert means. Oops, when? After the young man was reminded by the alcoholic girl beside him, he immediately looked down. After confirming that his clothes were gone, his pupils shrank suddenly and he looked shocked. Has anyone seen my clothes? Gray. Are you looking for your own clothes? In front of the perverted boy named Gray is a lively, little gangster-like, boy with short cherry pink hair wearing a dragon scale scarf around his neck. Natsu, give me my clothes back. Gray called out the name of the boy with cherry pink short hair, Natsu. At the same time, Gray looked shocked. He looked at his clothes held by Natsu with a bit of nervousness. Pervert Gray, if you want clothes, come and defeat me. It's burning. Natsu said as his fists burst into flames. In just an instant, Gray's clothes were ignited by the flames in Natsu's hand, and were immediately burned clean. Those are my new clothes. Natsu. You be ************** D, pay for my clothes. Gray saw that the money he had saved through frugality and the clothes he had bought were completely burned by Natsu, and anger continued to surge in his chest. After confirming that the clothes couldn't come back, gray veins stretched on Gray's forehead at a speed visible to the naked eye. He looked at Natsu and roared, "Okay. Come on then. Let me teach you a lesson. Ice shape, ice floor. Gray said. The terrifying freezing air gathered towards him, and in just a moment, the floor in front of him was covered with a thin layer of ice crystals. Ha ha ha. Idiot Gray, you have used this trick too many times. I have already thought of a way to deal with it. I will definitely defeat you this time. Facing the freezing air that swept in, Natsu laughed, jumped up from the ground, wrapped his hands with blazing flames, and hit Gray. Well, come. Look at my move. Ice Shape Ice Hammer. Gray didn't sit still, he formed a magical seal of ice with his hands, and instantly created a huge ice hammer, hitting Natsu, who fell from the sky. Boom! There was only a roar, and when Gray's ice and Natsu's flames came into contact, mist of water vapor was immediately created. I'm telling you. Just be quiet. At the same time, Gray and Natsu's actions also disturbed most of the members of the guild. Some of the impatient ones stood up from their seats and roared in the direction of Natsu and Gray. However, before he could finish his words, he was greeted by a broken ice hammer handle. Bang! Just hearing a soft sound, the man immediately fell to the ground. Ains? What's wrong with you, Ains? For a moment, the fairy tale member who was drinking with Ains immediately stood up, took 3 steps and 2 steps, and ran towards Ains, who was knocked unconscious. Unfortunately, this man seemed to have drunk too much and did not notice the man on the floor. There was a thin layer of ice, and he slipped and crashed into other tables. Boom! In a moment, the person approached the table, and even the table and the wine were overturned. You want to fight, right? The person approaching the table was not a vegetarian either, so he summoned a magic circle as he spoke. You think I'm afraid of you? The members of Fairy Tale, who had already slipped and fell, and were feeling angry, stabilized their bodies and stood up from the ground, while waving their hands and releasing the magic circle. Hey! On the other side, the bartender serving the wine also didn't notice the thin ice under his feet. He accidentally slipped and fell to the ground. The 7 or 8 wine glasses he was dragging with his hands were thrown out and fell into the hands of people nearby. On the head, not a drop of wine was wasted, all the hair was washed. Plop! 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 Then, there was a series of sounds of someone sliding on the thin ice under their feet. Damn! You want to fight, don't you? Who is afraid of whom? When the magisters in the guild climbed up from the ground, the angry flames had spread throughout the guild. For a moment, everyone picked up the objects closest to them, such as tables, chairs, cats, repair dogs, and the magicians watching the show nearby, and swung them out. In an instant, the entire guild became smoky, with countless magic arrays shining in the dim space, and combined with the ferocious faces of the guild members, it was like a group of demons dancing wildly. Touch! The girl who was standing outside the guild gate and watching everything in front of her saw this and silently closed the door to the devil's cave. She took a deep breath and said to herself, maybe the way I opened the door is wrong. This has nothing to do with me. It's completely different from what I heard. After a while, the girl was fully prepared. With a smile on her face, she once again opened the door of this simple guild. Well, the scene inside has not changed at all. The wretched and wretched, the perverted and the perverted, the fighting and the fighting. I probably came to the wrong place. Maybe it's just the same name. Maybe there is more than one guild called Fairy Tale in this country. It's better to go back and ask Mother. I probably can't find the person I'm looking for here. The girl was about to give up and go in. She was convinced that she was in the wrong place and this was not the fairy tale she was looking for. Just when the girl was retreating, she suddenly felt her body go limp. She seemed to have bumped into someone. The girl didn't think much and quickly turned around and apologized. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. It's okay, are you okay? What responded to the girl was a voice as warm as the spring breeze. Without. The girl looked up and saw a man with short black hair, sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes. He was tall and tall. He was wearing a black bottoming shirt and a slim windbreaker, which outlined his muscular lines. Filter version, a handsome young man in his 20s or 70s. Found it, father. The girl's eyes lit up and she knew she was in the right place. What did you say? The young man was stunned for a moment, looked at the girl and asked. Hello, my name is ERZA, I am a magician. The goal is to join Fairy Tale, the Magister Guild famous in the Kingdom of Fiori. Please give me your advice in the future. This girl with long crimson hair styled into a single ponytail. To be precise, it was a girl named ERZA, whose full name was ERZA Berserian. She bowed and said hello to the man in front of her. ERZA? The young mage named Ian felt his heart skip a beat when he heard this. The young man's name is Ian. Well, he is a time traveler. He has been in this world for 3 years. When Ian learned that he had traveled through time and traveled to Fairy Tale, the best-selling hot-blooded youth comic, he didn't panic at all. Because Ian clearly knows. No matter how hard I try, I can never defeat the final boss of the comic, the former Dragon Slayer mage who is pronounced Black Dragon but is actually a demon dragon. And single-handedly defeated the Dragon King Festival 400 years ago, completely destroying the human hero of the Age of Dragons and the current Dragon King, Lord Acnologia. Well, let me ask. A comic about a magister, where the final boss is free from the devil, what the hell is that? Let's leave it to the protagonist. In his entire life, Ian just wants to hang out in Fairy Tale and wait to die. Of course, he can still shout slogans and roar when necessary, we are all magicians of Fairy Tale. As for Ian's current strength, relatively speaking, it should be called very strong. It can be said that in the entire Fairy Tale Guild, he is second only to Guildarts, who is the strongest person in the guild, and Makarov, who is the president. As for Ian's current strong strength, it all depends on his own cultivation. Well, system, give me some more. Well, there is no system to add points this time. Perhaps it's because Ian is a time traveler. His mental power is very powerful unlike ordinary people, and he is a genuine super magic genius. According to President Makarov, Ian's magic talent is not far behind even when compared to the legendary Fairy Tale's second-generation president, Precto. Chapter 2 Irene Berserian. Bang! Bang! ****. Give me my stuff back. I think you are ignorant. The Fairy Tale Guild was still in a mess. In the rough language, all kinds of gorgeous magic are flying in the air. TSK. In front of the guild gate, Ian was about to talk to ERZA, who was as cute as a little scarlet-haired dumpling in front of him. After hearing the constant noise in his ears, he finally couldn't bear it. Lived. He first looked at ERZA beside him, tried his best to smile as kindly as possible, and said, "Wait a moment, I'll be fine soon." Immediately, there was only a bang sound. Then he saw Ian kicking open the door of the guild in front of him and rushing in. When ERZA saw the door that was kicked violently by Ian, she finally understood why the guild's door was always new. Hey! You little brats! Are you planning to dismantle the guild just like that? Why don't you stop it quickly? Ian faced the noisy people in the guild and said angrily. Look at my ice shape. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. Smoke Magic. Painting Magic. Unfortunately, all the magisters in the Fairy Tale Guild were obviously on top at this moment. They all seemed to have become red and warm, as if they didn't hear Ian's roar at all, and still did not stop the movements in their hands, releasing with infinite magic. Y'all stop it. When Ian saw this, the corners of his eyes twitched slightly, and then he raised his left hand. As Ian raised his hand, a huge purple magic circle formed over the guild. The next second, everyone who was fighting in the Fairy Tale Guild felt their shoulders sink. Before anyone could think about it, the majestic gravity poured down from the magic circle above, pressing them firmly one by one. On the floor. Forehead. It's so heavy. I can't move my body. Could this be gravity magic? In that case, Ian is back. When these red-warmed magisters from the Fairy Tale Guild were severely pressed down by Ian's signature gravity magic and rubbed intimately with the ground, they finally calmed down and put away their magic circles. Well. In response, Ian sighed and put away his magic. Ian, is work going well? After Ian put away his magic, she was responsible for the guild's logistics and was also the guild's signature girl. She walked up to Ian with a smile and asked about Ian's work situation with a smile. The work is going well. Although a few people escaped, it was harmless. When Ian said this, he paused and asked, "Isn't the president here? You actually let these guys destroy the guild?" The president went to attend the annual. The presidents of the Magister Guild under the Magic Council have gathered. To this, the girl immediately replied. That's right. Ian rubbed his temples and thought to himself, no wonder the guild was in a mess, but no one took care of it. When the guild leader went to the meeting and Guildarts was on a mission for a long time and was missing, he gave the boys of the guild a holiday, allowing him to do whatever he wanted in the guild. Ian, fight me. Just when Ian was about to say something, Natsu, who had a dragon scale-like scarf wrapped around his neck and short cherry-pink hair, let go at some point. Gray, who was entangled by him, rushed to Ian's body. Before, shouted. Forget it today, I'm already very tired, let's do it next time. Ian looked at Natsu in front of him and preached without interest. To be honest, sometimes Ian really envies this kid Natsu, who is so energetic every day. Oh. Natsu is challenging Ian again? I wonder how long Natsu can last in Ian's hands this time. In the guild, after being forced to stop fighting by Ian, they instantly put aside their previous grudges. 1 second they were still beating them to death, and the next second they acted like nothing was wrong. The guild members who started drinking again started to drink. After seeing Natsu's extremely determined figure blocking Ian, they all laughed. Ian, I'm here. The next second, Natsu seemed like he didn't understand what Ian was saying. He shouted loudly, and at the same time, blazing flames erupted from his body. He waved his immature fists, went straight to hit Ian, and shouted loudly, roared, "Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. When your fist is half as powerful as your roar, then challenge me again." Seeing this, Ian blocked Natsu's flaming fist with one hand. Then, his arm holding Natsu's fist suddenly lifted towards the sky. Natsu suddenly, under the upward force exerted by Ian, pulled his body and flew into the sky. Buzz! Just as Natsu's body flew into the air involuntarily and gradually stopped, a purple magic circle suddenly appeared next to him. Boom! For a moment, everyone only heard a roar. Natsu was knocked out by the horizontal gravity released by the purple magic circle in the sky, smashed through the glass of the guild's second-floor window, and fell into the river in the distance. Ha 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 ha. Natsu, this guy was killed instantly again. It really made me laugh. There's nothing we can do. The difference in strength is too big. After all, Ian is the only S-class mage in active service in our guild. What I'm saying is, Natsu, this kid, is a little too self-sufficient. For a time, Fairy Tale Guild was filled with laughter and laughter. Call. Ian was relieved after driving away the annoying Natsu. A bottle of water. Ian came to the guild bar and asked for a glass of water. Okay. As the waiter finished speaking, a glass of water was placed in front of Ian. Tons, 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 tons. I can finally take a break. I saw Ian sitting at the bar. After drinking a bottle of water, his brain seemed to have a flash of inspiration, and he suddenly remembered something. By the way, there's ERZA. Ian quickly arrived outside the guild gate and invited ERZA, who had been standing outside the gate obediently as he said, into the guild. Ian, who is this person? It's quite cute. Girls, why are they wearing armor? The drunken members of the guild asked in confusion after seeing Ian inviting a cute crimson-haired dumpling in from outside the gate. This is ERZA, the newcomer to our guild. Ian answered everyone's words truthfully, and took ERZA all the way to the bar. He took out the Fairy Tale Guild's magic seal from the box that the president kept lying around. Well, next to the magic seal, there is half a bottle of whiskey left by the president. We should really find someone who specializes in managing seals. Ian muttered softly, came to ERZA with the seal, and whispered, ERZA, stamp this seal, and you will be a member of the Fairy Tale Guild. ERZA heard this, looked at Ian and nodded with a smile. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. Good. Seeing this, Ian nodded lightly. As he spoke, Ian stamped the Fairy Tale Guild seal on ERZA's fair forearm, which looked like a fairy flying freely in the sky. At this point, ERZA Berserian officially joined the Magister Guild Fairy Tale. At the same time, the Western Continent, the Albarez Empire. A man who looks exactly like ERZA. If I had to say it, she was the adult version of Queen Wanisan ERZA. She was lying on the sofa, holding the crystal ball in front of her, and quietly looking at Ian and others in the picture. Finally found you. Huh, you are indeed not dead. Wait until I eliminate all the resistance that stands between us. You and I can be reunited as a family. The woman's name is Irene Berserian. She is the founder of dragon-slaying magic 400 years ago and ERZA's mother. Known as the mother of dragon slayer magic, queen of dragons, wise dragon, scarlet despair. It is the only and strongest empire in the Western Continent. It was created by the legendary black mage Zeref specifically to fulfill his dream. The top leader among Alvarez, the 12 shields of the saints, one of them. At the same time, he is also one of the most powerful twins in the empire. It can be said that adding together the remaining 10 shields outside the double wall is by no means a single enemy. This is such a person who can be said to be standing in the Western Continent. Even looking at the whole world, he can definitely be called the top combat power. There are no more than 10 people who are comparable to or stronger than her in this era. In the Western Continent, there are just like the queen-like existence was looking at the crystal ball and letting out a chuckle. Lord Irene, what's going on? Shoo, don't ask. All those who talk too much are dead. In Irene's bedroom. The two cuties who were responsible for taking care of Irene's daily life, Heina Linaxi and Juliet San, were lowering their heads and muttering quietly. Facing the devil like Irene, they didn't dare to say anything, and they didn't dare to ask anything. Chapter 3. The light in ERZA's eyes disappeared. Oh. So beautiful. In the guild, ERZA looked at the seal on her arm, her eyes gleaming, she whispered, her face filled with a smile of joy and happiness. The impression of Fairy Tale Guild is that of a free fairy flying among the flowers, just like her. By the way, ERZA. Ian, who was sitting at the bar, dazed with ice water, thinking about whether to go to the second floor of the guild to take on an S-level mission to kill time, turned slightly when he heard the voice. He looked at his side. ERZA, who had been staying quietly beside him since joining the Fairy Tale Guild, admiring the magic tattoo on her arm that symbolized the fairy tale status of the Magister Guild, seemed to have thought of something, so she asked, "Do you have a place to live now?" "Where to live?" ERZA blinked her big eyes, a trace of confusion flashing in them. Really not? Ian didn't know why, but he always felt that the ERZA in front of him was a little cute, which seemed a little different from what he remembered in the original book, the little girl who had experienced countless hardships and was therefore extremely strong. However, Ian didn't think much about it. Maybe ERZA was so cute when she first came to the guild. As for what happened to ERZA, Ian didn't ask much. Ian had no habit of asking about other people's experiences of hardship. From Ian's perspective, what's the difference between that and uncovering scars from someone else's past? Now that you have joined Fairy Tale, don't cling to the past, but look to the future. This is what President Makarov taught Ian. So next, there is the issue of ERZA's accommodation. Since President Makarov is not here, as the only S-class mage in the guild, he naturally has to take responsibility. Ian looked at ERZA and said with a smile, "Currently, our guild has specially prepared dormitories for the female magisters in the guild. Each of these dormitories is equipped with 24-hour hot water supply, and the supporting facilities are similar to those of high-end hotels. The price is also reasonable. Compared with the market, it is a very good choice. Of course, you can also choose to rent a house in the town. Whether you choose to live in the guild's dormitory or not, the guild won't say anything. Just be careful not to be deceived by unscrupulous stores on the market. If you are in danger or are being blackmailed, seek help from the guild immediately. Of course, the townspeople in Magnolia Town are still very kind, especially to the members of our Fairy Tale Guild. They may give you a discount because you are a guild member. Not allowed. Ian didn't know why, but when he looked at the cute ERZA, he couldn't help but feel worried, so he said a few more words. Forehead. Hearing this, ERZA looked a little hesitant, as if she had something to hide. No money? The way Ian looked at ERZA, he probably guessed something. So, Ian first rubbed ERZA's little head with a smile, and then continued understandingly, if you are short of money right now, you might as well live in my house first. When you make money, just move out. Anyway, my house is quite big and there are quite a few empty rooms. It's not a big deal to make one for you. Living with father? ERZA's eyes suddenly lit up when she heard this. When ERZA heard Ian ask her if she was short of money, her hand immediately reached for the space pocket on her waist, which contained the gold coins and luggage that Irene had prepared for her. It was only when ERZA heard that she could live with Ian. Little ERZA decisively let go of her little white hand that was tightly grasping the gold coin, and put on a weak and helpless posture, trying to be picked up and taken home by Ian. I saw ERZA blinking her big eyes, looking at Ian with a pitiful look, nodding repeatedly, well. Then I'll leave it to you. When I make money, I will definitely return the rent to you. Ha ha ha, don't worry. Ian, who didn't know at this moment that he had fallen into a child's trap and played into ERZA's hands, couldn't help but laugh when he saw ERZA's obedient and sensible look. He thought that he would be a child in the guild. It would be great if you are so obedient. By the way, you haven't prepared daily necessities yet? I mean sheets, quilts, etc. Ian seemed to be in a good mood. He looked at ERZA and continued to ask. No, no. ERZA heard the words and preached weakly. Then let me take you to buy it. By the way, I'll take you to take a good look at this town where you are about to start a new life. Ian looked at the excited ERZA and smiled. Good. ERZA's mood was surging, and her soft body was trembling slightly. She no longer knew what words to use to describe her excited heart at this moment. So, next. Ian spent half a day taking ERZA around the small town of Magnolia. I took her to eat all the snacks in the town. Of course, the town was not that big originally, and there were only a few places that could and were suitable to go to. At the same time, Ian bought several sets of clothes for ERZA that could be changed and suitable for ERZA, as well as some bedding and some daily necessities. That's all. Ian and ERZA returned to Ian's villa in the town with their bags packed. Yes, Ian has a 3-story villa in the small town of Magnolia, which is almost the same as Fairy Tale, a guild with a history of nearly 100 years. This villa is proof of Ian's diligence when he traveled to this world. Well, Ian is really engraved in his bones about working hard to make money and then buy a big house. So beautiful. ERZA stood in the garden of the villa, admiring the colorful flowers in the courtyard. Although this place is far not as big as Mother's palace, it is proof of Father's hard work after all, so ERZA will definitely take good care of it. ERZA whispered in her heart, this is where ERZA and Father will live from now on. Come on, I'll take you to your room. Ian looked at ERZA, fascinated by the garden, thinking that she was a little girl after all, and she also liked flowers and plants. Also, if they hadn't encountered those painful experiences, who would have become stronger in advance? When Ian thought of this, he couldn't help but feel a little pity for ERZA. He gently patted ERZA's little head, took her soft little hand, and pulled her into the villa. While ERZA nodded lightly, she secretly rejoiced in her heart, I can finally live with my father. After my mother clears the obstacles, our family can be reunited and be together forever. Then, when Ian pushed open the door of the villa, ERZA was stunned. First, 2 little brats she had seen in the guild came into her eyes. One of them was a pink-haired gangster who challenged Ian before and was punched away by Ian. There is also a pervert who has no moral sense and runs around in public wearing only a pair of underwear. For a moment, the light in ERZA's eyes seemed to disappear. Please, give me back the life I have been waiting for and planning for a long time with my father. You annoying, blind brats. ERZA roared internally. This is completely different from the life she imagined. Chapter 4 ERZA reports to her mother. Yo! Ian, are you back? Ian, you came back so late, I still have to duel with you. Well, besides Ian and ERZA, Gray and Natsu also live here. No way. With Natsu's character and the destructive power of Dragon Slayer magic, all the rewards he received from the mission were used to compensate his employer and indirectly support many construction teams in the Kingdom of Fiori. As for this guy Gray, he has a calm personality and a flexible mind, and will not use magic to destroy towns wantonly. But despite this, Gray doesn't have much money. Because this guy used all the rewards he received from his tasks to pay the prison fines and bail. Who makes this guy take off his clothes regardless of the occasion when he gets excited? He looks like a pervert. Gray was not sentenced simply because he was underage. So, if Ian doesn't care about these two things, they will have no choice but to sleep on the streets. Ian, there's no more wine. In addition to Gray and Natsu, there was also a drunk Kana sitting in the corridor of the villa. Ever since Kana was approved by Makarov last year and participated in the S-Class Magister assessment held by the Fairy Tale Guild, and was instantly killed by Ian, she has developed a good habit of drinking. Well, to put it simply, Kana spent all her work remuneration on buying alcohol, which resulted in her not being able to pay the rent at all, and she was kicked out by the landlord. Kana, who had no place to live, stayed in Ian's villa. You want to ask why? Who made Ian's house bigger? In this regard, Ian didn't say anything. He would not drive these little guys out before they reached adulthood. Natsu, if you're wet, don't run around on the stairs. Go and dry yourself before you come out. Kana, you have drunk enough today, no more. Gray, put your clothes on for me. Like an old father, Ian pointed at the three little ones in front of him and scolded them loudly. You're not allowed to drink? I'm not drunk, I can keep drinking. Kana hugged the barrel and protested loudly. What? When did the clothes on my body disappear again? Could it be that it has learned space magic? Gray looked at the clothes on his body that had disappeared again, and was shocked. You took it off yourself, idiot. Natsu covered his mouth and laughed at Gray wantonly. Well. In response, Ian let out a long sigh. He strode up to Gray, Natsu and Kana, and punched the heads of the three little animals in front of them, who were completely uneasy. Bang! 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 Then, the three of them became honest. I'll give you 5 minutes to throw away the bottle, wipe off the water on your body, get dressed, and gather in the restaurant. Those bad boys who exceed the time will have no dinner tonight. Ian said in a deep voice to Gray, Natsu and Kana. Quick! As Ian finished speaking, the three little ones no longer dared to delay. They knew that Ian was serious and they had to hurry up for dinner. Ever since, 5 minutes later. In the dining room. Gray, Natsu and Kana have all sat down neatly and are ready to eat. Ding! Seeing this, Ian just snapped his fingers, and countless delicacies were placed on the long table. Before dinner begins, I would like to introduce a new partner to you. This is ERZA, living here with you from today on. I hope you can get along well in the future. Ian introduced Natsu and others to ERZA, who was sitting next to him. She had just joined the guild this morning and was also staying at the Problem Children's Villa. Hello everyone, my name is ERZA. From today on, I am also a member of the Fairy Tale Guild and live with you all. I hope you will take good care of me in the future. ERZA smiled politely and introduced herself to everyone. My name is Natsu. My name is Gray. Please give me your advice in the future. Kana. On the other hand, the introduction by Naz and others was simple and clear. There is nothing more than a name. Let's eat. Ian didn't count on the drunk Kana either. Natsu's self-introduction was so normal. At the moment, Gray seemed to be a normal person. It would have been better if he hadn't taken off his shirt while holding a knife and fork. Already. Let's eat. When Ian finished speaking, Natsu had already started to attack. He picked up a whole roasted chicken and began to bite it like a hungry dragon. After Kana simply ate a few pieces of fruit, she took Ian's table wine and blew on the bottle. Gray is still normal. It would be better if you ignore the shirt he has taken off. ERZA was speechless for a while. she silently destroyed the food in front of her. An hour later, everyone finished their meal. Kana fell asleep holding the wine bottle in the middle of the meal. After Natsu was full, he also fell asleep with his round belly. As for ERZA, she remained calm. After the meal, she held the napkin and gently wiped her pink thin lips, showing her elegance. After the meal, Gray had already started clearing the table for everyone. Today it's his turn to wash the dishes. Well, but he washes the dishes every day. Gray is really a good boy. It would be better if his naked upper body and lower body only in boxers could be ignored. Just 1 hour of dining time. Gray took off his clothes and threw them aside. Well. Ian was helpless when he saw this. He first sent the sleeping Kana and Natsu to their respective rooms and covered them with quilts. Then, go to the kitchen and use the magic of water flow to help Gray clean the dishes. Then he returned and arranged the room for ERZA. Today is a bit rushed after all. Anyway, let's make do with it first. When we have some free time, we will arrange it carefully. Ian looked at ERZA and said softly. Yeah. ERZA is already very happy to have a room like this. ERZA was still well behaved at this moment. She bowed to Ian and thanked him. Have a good rest. You are exhausted too. Ian looked at the well-behaved ERZA and felt warm in his heart. He gently patted ERZA's shoulder and then left the room. ERZA was left alone so that she could have a good rest. Those annoying guys are so annoying. After Ian left the room, the weakness on ERZA's face immediately disappeared. I saw ERZA sitting casually on the soft mattress in the room, crossing her legs and squinting her eyes, like a queen from nowhere, whispering in her heart, "Father, it's enough to face these ignorant brats every day. Thank you for your hard work. Let me help you, Father, to train these bad boys." If Ian returns to the room and sees the scene in front of him, he will definitely exclaim, "It's right, it's right. This is the fairy queen ERZA in my impression. By the way, I haven't reported to my mother yet today," ERZA said as she took out a crystal ball from her magic pocket. As the crystal ball reflected a beautiful shadow, ERZA smiled and said, "Mother, Father, everything is normal today." Chapter 5 Ian, what? Are you telling me now that you were not dreaming back then? Other side. After Ian returned to his room, he lay down on the bed. He was so tired from taking care of the children. However, if Ian doesn't stand up, these children will be too pitiful. Why is it that in the entire fairy tale guild, there is almost no child with both parents? Yes, the fairy tale guild, behind the seemingly smiling face, are all heinous knives. It's like cutting a household registration book with one knife. After chasing a family for 400 years, he still doesn't let go, like crazy with razor blades. After teacher Yu Hua read it, he wrote 10 more books of Alive overnight. At least, the life experiences of these 4 children in Ian's villa are quite typical. Natsu's parents died 400 years ago. His only. To be precise, he should be the only 3 relatives. There is a crystal in the underground of the guild, which has been sealed for decades and is in a state of suspended animation. A man was driven crazy by a Kunaloa and planned to kill his wife and take her heart. There is another one who is troubled because his parents are not at peace and because of the curse of Anshin, so he cannot recognize his parents. Although his parents are still alive, he does not get love, and he lives like an orphan. Gray's parents and master all died on Dailiura, and he is now an orphan. It's okay if Kana's father doesn't mention it. Guess who supports the construction teams of the Kingdom of Fiori and even the entire continent of Ishgar? Kana really got to know Kilda's. Not to mention letting Kilda support her, it would be nice if she didn't give Kilda's money to pay off her debt. As for ERZA. ERZA has been a tragedy since her mother entrusted her to an inhumane person 400 years ago. Well. It would be nice if there weren't so many tragedies. Ian was lying on the bed, reviewing the fairy tale guild and the background stories of these poor children. He couldn't help but reach out to cover his eyes. As people get older, they tend to be sentimental. Bite. The dream simulator is loaded. Please host to start simulation. Just when Ian was lying on the bed and falling asleep, a mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Am I dreaming or? Ian looked stunned. He was a little suspicious of the sound he just heard. Dream Simulator, the host can travel to the timeline before countless tragedies occurred, and modify the results to make everything develop in a good direction and break the nightmares that plague others throughout their lives. After successful modification, you will get certain reward feedback. The quality of the reward will be determined based on the result of the host modifying the timeline. The system seemed to be aware of Ian's doubts, and it explained this. At this moment Ian understood, he finally awakened his cheat. It's not like I'm an S-class mage. I'm ready to just lie down in this world, but here comes your cheat. When I first crossed over, I was alone in another world, helpless. Where did you go? Ian roared at his system. Ding dong, testing is in progress. Results have been detected. Back to the host, the system initiated emergency measures as early as the first moment the host traveled through, and helped the host complete 2 simulations. It's just 2 simulations of the host, the time span is too long. During the simulation, all the energy of the system has been exhausted, causing the system to fall into a deep sleep before it can issue subsequent rewards in the future. Now that the system energy has been replenished, simulation rewards can be issued at any time. Ian's system continued to answer. Already run 2 simulations? Which 2 simulations? While Ian was feeling confused, the alarm bell in his heart had already sounded. He suddenly had an ominous premonition, as if something sad was about to happen. Ding! Data is being retrieved. The host simulated for the first time, traveled to 400 years ago, killed and used illusion magic to replace the neighboring general who was supposed to marry Irene Berserian. In the final battle, the Burning Life using gravity magic and illusion magic, he controlled all the enemy dragons for 1 minute and 50 seconds until Acnologia arrived, reducing the casualties on Irene's side. The host's second simulation also traveled to 400 years ago. While helping a group of young dragons to escape Akunarukia's pursuit, he sent them to the northern continent. During this period, you did something to the moon god dragon Selene. Something like this, or something like that. The system quickly answered Ian's question. No? Isn't that a dream? I've done it all, and now you tell me that all the things I did back then are true? Ian remembered that, as the system said, he had indeed performed 2 simulations. First simulation. Ian thought his cheat had finally arrived. In the timeline 400 years ago, he took advantage of the plot, carefully strategized, and ultimately sacrificed himself to help Irene change her tragic fate, and received excellent reviews. However, the rewards promised by the system did not arrive. As for the second simulation, because the system rewards have not arrived, Ian thought he had time traveler stress disorder and was going crazy thinking about cheats. In fact, there were no cheats at all. Everything he had done before was just a dream. In line with the principle that in his dream, he could be bullied by a group of dragon cubs, so Ian was a little more unrestrained during the second simulation. Well, for example, using the secret technique of dragon control to severely humiliate these dragon cubs. After completing the second simulation, the system was offline. Ian gradually forgot about this incident, spent these 3 wonderful years at Fairy Tale, and adapted to life here. If what the system says is true, then I must seize the time to become stronger. Once the 5 divine dragons living in the northern continent learn of my existence, I will be completely doomed. It's hard to say about the other dragons. That be ************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* definitely come to trouble me. Ian's eyes were very confused. He felt a sense of crisis for the first time after traveling to the world of fairy tale. Because of the second simulation, Ian really thought it was a dream. He offended 5.5 of the 5 divine dragons currently raging in the northern continent at once. Well, as we all know, there are 6 dragons in total. The 5-headed dragons, Fire Dragon Igonia, Water Dragon Melkobia, Wood Dragon Aldelan, Golden Dragon Viernes, and Earth Dragon Dracula Mag, all wanted to eat him alive. As for the Moon Dragon Selene, He could only say that a good man was indeed a little young and frivolous at that time, not to mention his bravery. Those are all debts, so don't mention them. Simulate. Listen to the system, simulate it for me right now. Also, remember to give me all the rewards you owe me, as soon as possible. Between life and death, Ian put aside his confusion and started his dream simulator. In order to change the tragedies that had happened to the members of the Fairy Tale Guild, and to prevent his future from becoming a tragedy, he, Ian, must imitate it at this moment. Speaking of which, since the inhuman timeline that Irene entrusted to me has been completely changed by me, her story has developed in a happy direction. Then whose daughter will ERZA be? Before Ian started the dream simulation, he suddenly seemed to think of something, and his face turned pale. Could it be that this girl ERZA is? Chapter 6 Jalal must get out and be promoted to the Holy 10 level. If nothing else happens, ERZA should be my daughter, right? In this regard, Ian came to the conclusion with a happy face. To be honest, I'm not quite prepared for being a father for the first time. But when I thought about having a daughter, I suddenly felt a little excited. It's just that when I think about this girl ERZA, she will grow up and fall in love or something like that in the future. As an old father, I feel extremely irritable in my heart. When Ian thought of this, his expression suddenly changed. When he thought about the future timeline, his precious daughter might be taken away by some will-o'-the-wisp, and he couldn't bear it anymore. Fortunately, I'm not an old-fashioned person who doesn't know how to adapt. I will not interfere too much with my daughter's future views on love. It's just that ERZA is my husband's daughter. When she falls in love with others, she must abide by the 3 no's principles. First of all, it is absolutely unacceptable for a guy to have large, meaningless tattoos on his face. Because he is obviously out of his mind. Secondly, guys with blue hair cannot do it. Because guys with blue hair look like gangsters. Thirdly, a guy with Jalal in his name is definitely not acceptable. Because I don't like it, and I feel disgusted when I hear this name. In just a few minutes, Ian prepared himself mentally and did his homework. Now, if he faced Jalal in this world again, he would be able to strike hard without any psychological burden. Although, the Jalal of this world has no intersection with the ERZA whose life path has been changed by Ian. At this moment, there is a high chance that the opponent is still an innocent boy, but Ian can still attack without mercy. Well, Ian's iron fist is still very hard, enough to break the legs of all wisps. To be honest, Ian originally had feelings for Gerald. In addition to being indifferent, there is still a trace of compassion. After all, Jalal, this little fool, was played with by others in the first half of his life, and he did many wrong things because of it, which made him spend the rest of his life living in atonement. But since ERZA was Ian's daughter, he could only say sorry to Jalal. This blue-haired guy named Jalal. To be precise, all blue-haired people named Jalal. Don't even think about getting close to his precious daughter. It's best not to appear in his field of vision. Otherwise, he would beat him every time he saw him. Don't ask why. The old father's anger would always be so unreasonable. At the same time. The world of Idolos. Akiu. A boy with blue hair, a tattoo on his face, and the letters Jalal in his name couldn't help but sneeze. Prince, are you okay? You have worked too hard these days, so you should take a rest. Beside the blue-haired boy, a black cat followed closely beside him. Seeing this, his expression was slightly excited. His eyes flashed with worry and he uttered human words. Panther Lily, don't worry, I'm fine. I just suddenly felt a tightness in my heart. I always feel that my trip to the world of Island will be extremely difficult. Jalal frowned, his eyes full of worry. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a chill. It felt as if there was some deadly horror on his bright road to the world of Islanden, quietly waiting for him to fall into a trap. The king must have discovered something. It seems I have to act early. I will definitely stop the king's conspiracy. Regarding this, Jalal thought silently in his heart. In Jalal's opinion, it must be his father who was blinded by ambition and discovered his whereabouts and secrets. Well, no matter how smart and resourceful Jalal is in the world of Idolos, even as a young boy, he single-handedly fought against the entire kingdom. But he couldn't imagine that all the malice that made him frightened came from a stranger in the different world he was about to go to, a stranger with whom he had never met. As for the man who had given Jalal the greatest malice, he silently turned on his simulator at this moment. Reward withdrawal. Ian first extracted from the system the rewards from his first 2 successful simulations that the system failed to issue on time. Rewards are being distributed. Suddenly, the magic that Ian had learned in the first 2 simulations, and the magic that he had worked so hard to improve, all poured into his body like a tide. Yes, the most precious thing in this dream simulator is time. After each simulation, Ian can superimpose the knowledge he has learned in the timeline entered by the simulator and the improved magic power onto himself. Ian's first simulation, the timeline he traveled through was X365. The place he traveled through was the dragon-friendly kingdom, where Irene was located. In this way, Ian followed Irene silently in this timeline for 5 years. He spent all these 5 years improving his strength. Until X370, Ian thought his strength was enough. Then he went to a neighboring country alone, assassinated the general who might marry Irene in the future, and replaced him with illusion magic. Next, Ian spent another 5 years. He eliminated all the corrupt nobles in neighboring countries and built the neighboring countries into a powerful empire with an iron wall. Finally, he naturally married Irene and died in battle in X376. Eventually, Ian became a well-known hero in this timeline. As a result, in the Magic Council of the current timeline, there are still epic poems praising the deeds of Ian, and there are sculptures to promote his spirit. Even on the anniversary of Ian's death every year, the Senate organizes commemorative activities. And in this first simulation, Ian's harvest included 11 years of magic and dragon-slaying magic with the virtuous attribute. Yes, with Irene's help, Ian also became the Dragon Slayer Magister. When Ian extracted the 11 years of magic power that he had worked hard to cultivate in the Irene timeline, his power directly broke through the barrier of the S-class Magister and was directly promoted to the level of the top 10 Holy Magisters. However, the magic power in Ian's body did not stop there. He once rose from the level when he first entered the Holy 10, that is, Jula's level 7 years ago, to the level of Jura 7 years later, when he was hailed as the strongest human being during the demon-fighting martial arts period. It wasn't until Ian reached this level that his speed of improvement slowly stopped. Ian could clearly feel that there was a huge barrier in front of him, hindering him. Chapter 7 No one will die this time, because I am here. Ian knew clearly in his heart. The barrier ahead is the dividing line between humans and monsters. As long as he takes one more step forward, Ian will be able to rise to the level of the 4 heavenly kings of Ishgar. At the same time, it is also the inhuman level described by Granny Oba, the president of the Magister Guild's Snake Princess scale. Call. It seems that the reward I received from the first simulation can only improve me to this point. The next step is to extract the rewards I received during the second simulation. Ian then extracted from the system the rewards he received during the second simulation. The timeline of Ian's second simulation entry is X377, the first year after Ian's death. In this year, Acnologia, who was still the Dragon Slayer, went crazy. Whether it is an ordinary giant dragon or a terrifying being at the Dragon King level, anyone who dares to stand in front of Acnologia will die. The dragons in the entire Islandan world have come to a moment of life and death. For this reason, the great flame dragon King Igneal, in order to obtain power enough to defeat the invincible demon dragon King Acnologia, did not hesitate to cooperate with the black mage Zerif. Finally, with the help of the Heartfilia family, the ancient celestial mage family, the celestial spirit mage, the dragon slayer mage, the giant dragon and the black mage conducted a relay that lasted 400 years and spanned several generations. However, these have nothing to do with Ian. His mission has nothing to do with the main plot. He is responsible for safely sending a group of young dragons who are extremely arrogant and have no regard for humans to the north safely. Mainland. In this regard, Ian learned the secret technique of dragon manipulation that can give psychological suggestions to the dragon, and also invented a transportation magic specifically for the Dragon Slayer Magister. Well, the so-called vehicle magic is to make the air move by adding the properties of a vehicle to the air, thus indirectly affecting Acnologia, who is almost immune to magic. Yes, Acnologia felt like vomiting as soon as he touched the air attached to Ian. To be honest, Irene was the inspiration for this move. After all, Irene was in the original work, but by adding magic to the earth, she successfully sent away Acnologia, who originally ignored magic. Although, Ian, like Irene, cannot cause much harm to Acnologia, it can disgust him. But what is more regrettable is that after using the transportation magic, Ian himself will become dizzy. In this way, Ian took the young dragons, while traveling and training these disobedient dragon cubs, while also entangled with Acnologia for nearly 20 years. Only then did all the young dragons on the Ishgar continent send away. Yes. Ian offended not only the 5 divine dragons, but also Acnologia. What makes Ian most heartbroken is that when he simulated for the second time, he thought he was the same as the last time, except that he had a longer dream. After all, that's what dreams are like. Sometimes you clearly feel that you have slept for a long time and experienced a lot, but when you open your eyes, you realize that less than 10 minutes have passed. This is still a different world with magic, so it's normal to have longer dreams. Therefore, Ian has always viewed people with their true appearance. I have to say, he was careless. Extract. When Ian's recollection ended, he sighed deeply and at the same time withdrew the rewards he had stored in the system. Now that things have come to this, he can no longer change the past. I can only scold the system for being a cheat and keep working hard to become stronger. Until those potential enemies can't hurt him. Boom. Suddenly, the magic power that Ian had worked hard for 20 years in the 5 Dragons timeline, and the magic he had learned, all rushed into his body. In an instant, the barrier between humans and non-humans in Ian's body was immediately broken through by this powerful magic power. Judging from the magic power in Ian's body now, he is not inferior to the last 3 of the 4 Ishgar kings. That is, Warrod Sequin and others, represented by the founder of Fairy Tale Guild. Of course, compared to the one in the original work, Ian originally ranked first among the 10 holy magisters, but eventually betrayed the continent of Ishgar and turned to the continent of the West, that is, the embrace of Zeref, and succeeded. Serena, the god, who joined the 12 shields of the saints, is still slightly inferior. But at this time, Serena still doesn't know which village she is squatting in. In other words, Ian has now reached the top level of Ishgar continent. But it's still not enough. Compared with the real strong man, he is far from enough. Ian, who is as powerful as the King of Heaven, is still like a crawling ant when faced with existences of the level of Irene and the Magic King. Not to mention those dragons who are more powerful than Irene and the Magic King, as well as the invincible Acnologia. And now there is only one thing Ian can do, and that is System, simulate it for me. The moment Ian screamed in his heart, he felt his consciousness dim. Simulated object Grey, timeline Daily Yura first invaded the town where Grey was located. Simulated object Kana, timeline before Cornelia Arapolona died of illness. The simulated object Natsu was sent away by Igneel and Zeref using the Eclipse Gate. Ian looked at the countless timelines in front of him, his eyes twitching slightly. Perhaps it was because the current Natsu was not Zeref's biological brother who died under the dragon's attack. He was actually the Balrog End resurrected by Zeref using his brother's remains. So there is only one thing that bothers Natsu, and that is why Igneel left without saying goodbye. He wanted to be with Igneel forever. Ian rejected this item directly because he couldn't complete it at all. Next is the relationship between Kana and Grey. Ian didn't hesitate and chose Grey directly. Ian can't solve the problems that bother Kana at all. He knows nothing about treating patients, so he has to go to Poryuzuka first to replenish some medical knowledge. In summary, Ian believes that Grey's timeline is the most suitable for him now. Simulation. As Ian identified the simulated object, he felt that the world he was in was getting dark. When Ian regained consciousness, he was already in a sea of fire. Help! Someone help me! Put out the fire! Put out the fire quickly! Damn it, why would a monster like Daily Yura appear here? The whole town was filled with cries and pleas for help. Warning, the timeline has changed. Host, please leave immediately, otherwise the timeline will develop in an extreme direction. Gray will most likely die. Depend on. Ian cursed angrily and disappeared into the burning town. Among the countless ruins turned into after being ravaged by demons. A little boy looked panicked. In front of him were his parents who were unable to move under the rubble. Gray, run. Never look back. As you can see, although it's a pity, Mei Hua and I can no longer afford to leave. But you still have a chance to escape from here. Gray, carry the hopes of me and your mother, live well. Yin's legs, which were pressed under the beam, were already numb. He was blocking Mei Hua's body, and his arms that were pierced by nails were no longer able to swing. He lowered his body and looked at the people protected by him, who were injured by the impact. The fainting wife, with fascination in her eyes. In fact, Ian had a chance to escape. He was one of the first people to discover that Daily Yura had invaded the town, but he rushed back without hesitation in order to save his wife who was still in the house. It's a pity that he never has the chance to leave. Ian never regretted dying with Mei Hua. If there is anything in this world that worries Ian, it must be his young son. Finally, Ian raised his head. He looked at his proud son and encouraged, Gray, be brave. You have grown up and it's time to make a choice. Run, take me and your mother with you, hope to survive. After all, sometimes escape requires more courage than death. Father. Mother. Gray's voice was hoarse, his eyes were already red, and tears were dripping from them. Roar. Not far away, the demon's roar was getting closer and closer. Gray, run. Silver was roaring under the house. ****. Gray raised his head and looked at the demon in the distance with eyes full of hatred and hatred. He wanted revenge and he wanted to live. Sooner or later, he would kill the demon who was the culprit who destroyed the town. Daily Yura. Gray's heart was about to be filled with hatred. So that it eventually led to a catastrophe, before something happened that made him regret his whole life. A figure that looked like an evil ghost landed in front of Gray at some point. Yes, Daily Yura. Don't want. Ian roared angrily. He didn't know where the strength came from. His numb body was once again filled with strength. He seemed to be able to break free from the ruins weighing thousands of kilograms. As for Gray, his pupils shrank slightly. Maybe it would be good to die here. At least it won't kill that person. Who is that person? No. Under Yin's roar, Daily Yura waved his fist. I see. In Gray's opinion, when Daily Yura invaded the town for the first time, should he have died under the opponent's fist instead of insisting on killing his master Uru in the future? But it doesn't matter, Gray, you won't die here, your parents won't die here, the townspeople won't die here, and Uru won't die here. Because this time, I'm here. At this critical moment, a tall figure appeared in front of Silver, who was struggling to break free from the rubble in order to save Gray. He picked up Gray on the ground with one hand, and waved towards the ferocious-looking Daily Yura with the other. Roar? Daily Yura was in a daze. He didn't notice when the human in front of him came to him. Just when he was confused, the human spoke. Yo! Devil! Who allowed you to take action against my people? Before Daily Yura could think about it, the majestic gravity was already released from the human hand waving towards him. Boom! Just hear a roar. Daily Yura, who was ravaging the town, was already flying into the sky uncontrollably under this powerful force. Boom! With takeoff Daily Yura. There seemed to be lightning flashes in the sky. Crash! The next second, heavy rain fell from the sky, extinguishing the burning town. It seems that God is mourning for this town. Chapter 8 Stars Fall, The Shattered Daily Yura. In the town, the raging fires were extinguished by the overwhelming rain. The thick smoke and flames extinguished by the heavy rain gave the devastated townspeople a slight chance to breathe. I saw the townspeople spontaneously clasping their hands together, kneeling on the street, praying silently to the sky, thinking that the gods in the sky had finally given them a response. Other side. You are. The young Gray looked at the tall figure that suddenly appeared in front of him and knocked Daily Yura away, with a deep look of shock in his eyes. He still can't believe what he just saw. That invincible Daily Yura was actually beaten away. God? After a few seconds, the young Gray realized something. He seemed to regard the person beside him as a god in the sky. After all, in the view of young Gray, if there is anyone in this world who can so easily fly away the demon Daily Yura, maybe it is only the gods in the sky? God? No, I am not God. When the man heard this, he chuckled first, and then gently put Gray down. In front of Gray and Silver, he rolled up his long sleeves, revealing the fairy-like magic seal on his right arm that seemed to be flying freely in the sky. He said softly, "If you insist on saying it, I should be a fairy. Because I am the magician of Fairy Tale Guild." Fairy Tale? Magister? After Gray heard the name Fairy Tale, his tense strings finally relaxed. He didn't know why, but he just felt that the name Fairy Tale was extremely reassuring. For a moment, Gray was in a trance, and his eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. Today's experience was still too hard for a young child. However, before Gray's consciousness completely dissipated, he firmly remembered Fairy the name Tale. "I'm sorry. I made you worry about the safety of our family. It should obviously be my responsibility to protect my wife and children." Ian, who burst out with amazing potential in a desperate situation, successfully took his wife and broke free from the ruins. He held his wife Meihua in one hand and Gray, who fell asleep, in the other hand. He frowned, with a bit of regret in his eyes. It would be great if he was strong enough. In this case, Gray and Meihua would not be harmed in any way. In Yin's view, no matter what the circumstances were, it was a husband's dereliction of duty if his wife and children were injured. This was the first time in Yin's life that he began to long for something other than his family. He hoped that he could gain the power to protect his family under any circumstances. "You've done a great job. Leave it to me next." The man, that is, Ian, first turned around and smiled at the self-condemned Ian. As an ordinary person, Ian had already done a good job. Next, as a magister, he has to do what he has to do. That monster. After hearing what Ian said, Ian seemed to have thought of something. His pupils shrank slightly, with a bit of unwillingness in his eyes. "Yes, it's a pity that the monster was not defeated by me like this. After all, he is the great demon in the book of Black Mage Zerif. He will not die so easily. Let me add some more information to him." The moment Ian's voice fell, he had already risen into the air and flew towards the demon. Roar! In the sky, Daily Yura, who was held in the sky by Ian using gravity magic and unable to move, was already impatient to wait. When he saw Ian flying towards him, a hint of joy flashed on his ferocious face. He opened his bloody mouth, gathered dazzling magic light, and sprayed towards Ian. Devil's passion? When Ian saw this, there was a bit of disdain in his eyes, and he said softly, "President Makarov personally passed down the highest defensive magic, 3 Pillars of God." When Ian finished speaking, a golden magic circle immediately rose up under him, and 3 divine pillars flashing with mysterious runes appeared out of thin air around Ian, wrapping him tightly. Boom! It was also at this moment that the passion released from Yura's mouth, which was enough to dissolve everything, fell on Ian's body. Boom! For a moment, thick smoke billowed. Roar! Daily Yura screamed excitedly when he saw this. In his eyes, Ian, who was hit by the passion he released, is already a dead person at this moment. I am afraid that the other party has been blown to ashes by the powerful magic energy he released. Buzz! It's a pity that Daily Yura was disappointed. After the smoke cleared, what was revealed was an undamaged Ian who was tightly wrapped by the defensive power released by the 3 pillar gods. Even Daily Yura's excitement was not enough to destroy the mysterious magic pillar wrapped around Ian's side. Poor and weak. Die under the light rain of the 7 stars. The moment Ian spoke softly, 7 golden magic arrays suddenly lit up in the sky. Roar? Daily Yura felt threatened and looked up. He looked at the magic array shining above his head, with confusion in his eyes. Even he didn't know when Ian placed the magic array in the sky. Boom! It's a pity that the 7 stars trial will not give Daily Yura any chance to react. The light rain was continuous, like the second uncle's 8-foot Magatama, which directly knocked down Daily Yura from the sky and smashed it into the snow-capped mountains at the edge of the town below. The light rain continued, and the terrifying energy melted the entire snow mountain. The stars that kept shining in the sky illuminated the entire town behind it. This is... For a moment, the residents of the town were all shocked. They looked at the roaring magic power in the distance with uncertainty, but they knew clearly in their hearts that there seemed to be some powerful existence fighting against Daily Yura. Everyone, evacuate quickly. Leave the town and go to a safe place. The Magister of the Fairy Tale Guild is here to save us. Just when the townspeople were hesitating, with Meihua on his shoulders and Grey Silver in his hand, he rushed towards the crowd and shouted loudly. Yes. Run, run quickly. After the townspeople reacted, there was no hesitation. They no longer prayed to the sky. Instead, they used the starlight released by the 7-star sword to run wildly. It was still important to escape for their lives now. Other side. Roar. Daily after Yura took a shot from the 7-star sword, although his body was in tatters, he was still full of energy. He raised his head and roared towards Ian in the sky. So hard. Ian frowned when he saw this. Now he finally knew why the Holy 10 level URU couldn't deal with this guy in front of him. Although Daily Yura's destructive power was quite average, it was strong enough and had a strong resistance to conventional magic. Resistance. In Ian's view, with the strength Daily Yura showed at the moment, even if he were placed at the gate of Hades in later generations, he would still be at the highest cadre level, perhaps second only to Pluto Maldo Gil. It's time for a big one. While Ian frowned, he used telepathy magic to connect to the silver in the distance. Ian, can you hear me? Ian, who was placing his wife and children in a safe place, was startled by a voice that echoed in his mind before he could rest. You are? Ian was shocked and asked the identity of the owner of the voice in his mind. I am the magician of the Fairy Tale Guild. Ian answered truthfully. It turns out to be you. Have you successfully dealt with Daily Yura? Ian asked excitedly about the situation on Ian's side. Honestly, it's a bit troublesome. Ian in the sky shook his head helplessly. Trouble? Does it mean that even you can't deal with Daily Yura? Ian couldn't believe it. If even Ian couldn't kill Daily Yura, they didn't know who else could help them. No. It's very simple to deal with him. It's just that I will use a very dangerous magic next, which will destroy Daily Yura and the entire snow mountain, which may affect the town. So I need you to answer me truthfully, have all the residents in the town been evacuated? Ian is also very helpless, at his level. To be precise, as long as you reach the level of Holy 10, you can destroy the world with a wave of your hand, and you can destroy an entire town in an instant. This is also the main reason why the Magic Council strictly prohibits internal fighting among the top 10 magicians. Please give me 10 minutes. When Ian heard this, his brows knitted together, and he assured Ian. Good. While Ian nodded, he continued to use gravity magic to suppress Daily Yura. Roar. Daily Yura naturally would not surrender. He kept gathering energy in his mouth and struck at Ian in the sky. Unfortunately, he was intercepted by the 3 pillar gods. Everyone, please count the number of people. Have they all escaped? Regardless of his injuries, Ian kept running in the mud and spread Ian's words to the surrounding townspeople. It's too dark, light the torch. The townspeople looked anxious. The more they tried to count the number of people, the more they lost count. The rain is too heavy and it won't light up. Then light the magic crystal quickly. Don't be stingy at this time. Good. The rain was so heavy and fast that everyone could not see the road clearly, let alone the people. In order to be able to count clearly, they used precious magic crystals as light sources. Tom's family is here, Jenny's family is here, John's family from the blacksmith shop is here. Why didn't you see old Jack? Old Jack passed out. Got it, let's continue counting. Facing the invasion of the demon Daily Ura. Although this time, Daily Ura only invaded the outskirts of the town and was successfully intercepted by Ian, but the excitement he unleashed on the town still caused a lot of casualties. But compared to the town that was completely reduced to ashes in the original work, I don't know how much better it is. 10, 9, 8, 7. Time passed minute by minute. 10 minutes go by in a blink of an eye. When Ian was sure that all the residents in the town had run out, he looked excited and shouted loudly to the sky, "Master Magister, you can take action, there is no one in the town anymore. Receive." In the distance, Ian, who was still fighting with Daily Ura, after hearing Ian's words, no longer deliberately suppressed his power, and fully mobilized the magic power in his body. Boom! Daily Ura, who was still arrogant in front of Ian, suddenly changed his ferocious face after feeling the ocean-like magic power in Ian's body, with a trace of astonishment and disbelief in his eyes. This power is no longer weaker than that of Pluto Maldogil? Human! How can you have such power? This is the first time that Daily Ura has uttered words, and it is also the last time. Because. Call. Along with a strong wind, the heavy rain that swept through the town was blown away. The moon and stars appeared again, lighting up the earth. But the next second, the sky and the earth became dim, the moon no longer shined, the stars no longer shined, and the earth let out bursts of mournful sounds. Immediately afterwards, there were dark and rolling clouds one after another. A huge gap opened in the middle of the clouds. It seemed that something terrifying came from outside the sky and wanted to get out of the gap and sweep across the earth. True celestial magic star collapse. As for Ian in the sky, his expression was as indifferent as a god, and there was no trace of Daily Ura in his eyes. He was like crushing an insect, announcing the name of the super magic, and also announcing the name of Daily Ura. Death. Boom. For a moment, the sky seemed to burst. The burning stars fell from the cracks in the sky. Releasing endless pressure, it fell towards Daily Ura in the snow-capped mountain valley. Roar. Seeing this, Daily Ura roared and roared. He stretched out his arms towards the stars that were falling rapidly in the sky. He concentrated all the magic and spell power in his body and released it towards the sky, vowing to push back those fallen stars. Buzz. It seems that the creator of the devil, Zerif, who is in a distant place, heard Daily Ura's prayer, or maybe he is strong enough and his idea worked. The falling star seemed to pause for a moment. Laugh. Daily Ura's face lit up, he thought he had succeeded. Hee. Then, when he saw Ian in the sky, a hint of amusement flashed in his eyes. Boom. Under the huge gravity magic, Daily Ura was once again crushed to the ground, and the stars that had paused for a while actually fell towards Daily Ura at a faster speed. It's over. Seeing this, Ian announced the end of the farce. Boom. The stars fall and everything ends. In an instant, both Daily Ura and the snow-capped mountains, together with the entire mountain range, disappeared in the light of the fire. The huge shock wave turned into a strong wind and swept in all directions. It directly destroyed the interception shield that Ian had placed around it, and spread to the entire town at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the moment when the shock wave that seemed to shatter everything was about to reach the townspeople who were taking refuge not far away, several stone pillars fell from the sky, emitting bursts of faint light, intercepting them. By the time they reached the townspeople, the fierce shock wave had turned into a gentle breeze. Chapter 9 Uru appears and Gray becomes his apprentice. Early morning. The rising sun shatters the darkness. When the sun illuminates the earth. The townspeople who had been wandering all night finally returned to the small town where they lived. However, when these townspeople saw the scene in front of them clearly, their eyes widened. They did not dare to look at the passage. Hey! Are we really not in the wrong place? The town we live in is really here. Well, what everyone saw was a deserted place. Their beloved town now looked exactly like the Konoha village that had been plowed over by the bitter and grudge-loving Mr. Pain of Tendu who used the Super Shinra Tensei. All the buildings and everything have disappeared without a trace. This is pretty good. The snow-capped mountains are not far away, and even the entire mountain range have disappeared. Instead, there is a large artificial lake. The depression in this artificial lake was forcibly smashed out by the star crash. The water in the lake is the old snow on the snow-capped mountains melted by the 7-star sword rain, so fortunately it is all fresh water. Some fish fry will be put in this year, and next year, maybe their town will be able to make a living from the endless lake in front of them, which is comparable to the inland sea. Well, Orion forcibly changed his job to become a fisherman. I didn't expect that after living in the East Inland all my life, I would still have the opportunity to see the legendary sea. I am truly lucky. It is also my good fortune. The mayor stroked his long beard, his eyes particularly calm. The mayor is indeed a man who has seen the world and was not scared at all. The townspeople looked at the calm mayor, who seemed to have found a backbone, and praised him one after another. Yo-ho! Today's dream was quite interesting. Usually in my dreams, the faces of those people are not clearly visible. Today I finally saw it clearly. They are all residents of the small town. This is really interesting. After hearing the voices of the townspeople, the mayor subconsciously turned his head to look. After seeing the panicked faces of the townspeople, he smiled softly. As he said that, the mayor picked up the crutch in his hand and smashed it on his head. While hitting him, he yelled, "If this is a nightmare, wake me up quickly. Give our village back. B****************** D. It's not good. The mayor of the town has been frightened out of his mind. The old man actually thinks that he is still dreaming. When the mayor finished speaking, the townspeople immediately surrounded him in panic. They controlled the mayor on the spot, took away the crutch in his hand, and kept explaining, "Mayor, we are not dreaming. Here we are. This is the town where we used to live. As for this sea, it used to be a snow-capped mountain. I remember that when I was a child, you took me to hunt rabbits in the mountains. Have you forgotten everything?" "Of course I remember." The mayor began to cry as he spoke. Seeing the town he had run for many years suddenly be destroyed, couldn't it make him go a little crazy? Fortunately, everyone is still alive. As long as people are still alive, everything is easy. Anyway, thank you very much for helping us defeat Daily ERZA. Without you, let alone saving the town, I'm afraid everyone in our town will be destroyed in the flames, right? The mayor is a sensible person, so after he clearly realized that this was not a hallucination or a dream, he took the townspeople to the body of Ian, who had just crushed Daily ERZA to ashes. In front of him, he bowed and thanked Ian. "It doesn't matter, it's just a little effort." When Ian heard this, he smiled and shook his head. "I heard from Ian that you are the magician of the guild, right? I, a bad old man like me, still understand the rules of the magister. Originally, we should have expressed something. It's just that you have also seen that we really have nothing to give you right now. All our belongings were destroyed by Daily ERZA's invasion last night. In the coming year, we will hunt from the mountains, all the prey is sold." When the mayor said this, his voice suddenly paused. He seemed to have remembered something. He looked at the lake in the distance that replaced the snow-capped mountains. After clearing his throat, he continued, "In the future, the fish in our fish pond will, if you develop them all, I will definitely make up for all your rewards today. No need to bother. This is what I should do." When Ian heard this, he touched the back of his head and smiled softly. Originally, he had accidentally wiped out the town, and he was already feeling a little guilty. How could he dare to ask for compensation from these simple townspeople? If he had traveled a few dozen minutes in the morning, he might have been able to intercept Daily ERZA outside the town, which was really a pity. "May I ask, your name? It's great that we have a chance to repay you." However, the mayor is still very insistent. If the town is destroyed, it can be rebuilt. People only have one life, and if they die, they can't come back. "My name is E." When Ian heard this, he originally planned to tell his name directly. But when he saw the endless wasteland in front of him, he cleared his throat and temporarily changed his name. I won't change my name or surname. I am none other than the Magister of the Fairy Tale Guild, Gildarts. Gildas? Could it be that you are Gildarts, who is known as the strongest mage in the west of Ishgar continent? Gildas's name is still very resounding. Even in this unremarkable town, some people have heard of it. They all widened their eyes and couldn't stand the passage. Exactly. Ian nodded slightly. But I heard that Gildarts is a drunkard, d, a pervert, and a wretched uncle. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like him, right? The townspeople looked at Ian with a look of disbelief. Hey! Uncle Gildarts, your reputation outside is really loud. The whole world knows that you are d, so I am doing some good deeds for you. Ian's eyes twitched slightly. He ignored his own conscience and explained to Gildas, actually, those are all rumors. I am a good person. I see. The simple townspeople believed Ian's lies. Although Gildas is indeed as rumored, he is a d who pulls up his pants and runs away, a scumbag, and an alcoholic. Next. After Ian accepted the thanks of the townspeople in Gildas's name, he approached the Ian family. Just now, Ian used the communication magic that Ian had cast before and contacted Ian again, saying that he had something important to talk to him about. After Ian arrived at the place Ian mentioned. Then he saw Ian holding his wife Meihua, who was already awake, and Gray with his head lowered. The family of three were standing under the tree, and it seemed that they had been waiting for Ian for a long time. Gray, go quickly. After Silver saw Ian, he patted Gray's back gently and encouraged Gray. So, before Ian could ask, he saw Gray walking directly, kneeling on his knees and loudly preaching, Senior Gildarts. I want to learn magic. No. Now, coach, what's going on with my sense of déjà vu that I want to play basketball? Ian's mouth was half opened. He held back what he originally planned to ask, and complained crazily in his heart. Ahem, first of all, I'm not Gildas, my name is Ian. Ian looked at Gray, first explained his name, and then said with some regret, as for you wanting to learn magic? I do know something, but I'm sorry, I really can't teach you. Why? Gray looked up, confusion flashing in his eyes. Because you can't learn. Ian is helpless, the celestial magic he is good at is not suitable for Gray. Yes, really? A look of disappointment flashed across Gray's eyes. He lowered his head, wondering what he was thinking. Although you can't learn my magic. However, if you come from the bottom of your heart and really want to learn magic, I have someone I can recommend to you. She is a good teacher, and she has the magic that is most suitable for you in this world. Ian helped Gray up from the ground and smiled. Really? I really want to learn magic. I never want to encounter a situation where the people I cherish are attacked by bad guys and I can't do anything. Gray didn't seem to expect that he would actually make a turn for the better in learning magic. So he raised his head and looked at Ian, his big eyes full of expectation. Of course, how could I lie to you? Upon hearing this, Ian gently rubbed Gray's little head, and then messed up Gray's broken hair. Ian stopped his movements, turned around, looked at someone behind him, and smiled. As for what I said, the person who can teach you magic is, she. She? Gray was a little confused. He followed Ian's gaze. Not far away, I saw a woman with neat black short hair walking towards the crowd. The woman is very peculiar. Even in the cold winter, she only wears a thin coat on her top. The coat is open to reveal a slightly sexy underwear. The jeans on her lower body reveal her bumpy buttocks, which makes people unable to take her away. Sight. When I got closer, I realized that the woman's facial features were also straight and beautiful, and her whole body exuded a heroic spirit that the girl did not have, giving people a sense of heroic appearance. Next to this woman, there was also a man who was born with a young white head. The silver-haired boy. Hey! Don't accept random apprentices for others. After the woman arrived, she rolled her eyes at Ian first, and then looked at the young Gray who was stunned on the spot, and said in surprise, "Don't tell me, this kid really has the talent to practice modeling magic." In that case, I will reluctantly, he was accepted. Gray, why don't you become a disciple soon? When Ian heard this, he poked Gray next to him and laughed. Is she very strong? What surprised Ian was that Gray was actually picky. He turned to look at Ian and asked. Idiot. Of course she is stronger. If in your opinion, you, whose strength is comparable to the top 10 magicians of the Holy Saints, even if he is called the first ice magician in the Ishgar continent, is not strong enough, then you can only find apprenticeships with those old monsters who have lived for hundreds of years, are known as the Kings of Heaven on the mainland, and are known as Kings of Heaven. In this case, even I can't help you, a picky little brat. Ian pressed Gray's head and lectured. It hurts. Damn. Gray covered his head with tears in his eyes. As he spoke, he strode towards Ulu, lowered his head and said, Excuse me, can you accept me as your disciple? I will accept you as a disciple who doesn't know what is good or bad. Upon hearing this, Ulu smiled kindly at first, and then forcefully waved his iron fist full of love on Gray's head. Well, Ulu was still very angry about the fact that Gray actually questioned her strength and resisted becoming her disciple at the beginning. It hurts. The tears that had been pooling in Gray's eyes finally couldn't stop flowing out. You are my good disciple if you cry. Ulu smiled, looked up at Ian, and said with a kind smile, Then next, should we talk about the things between you and me? I don't know what you have, what do you want to do with me? Is it my place to explain? Explain? Me? Ian was a little confused. He didn't feel like he had anything to explain to you. Mr. Gildas, please tell me why you look so different from the Uncle Sippy in my impression? You have recently learned the magic of time, and you are getting younger as you live, right? You looked at Ian with a smile and asked. Ah, by the way, it was mentioned in the extra story that Gildarts and you knew each other. After all, there are only so many magisters on the continent of Ishgar who can be called powerful. It's not a big deal if they know each other. It's normal. Ian was helpless, but he didn't expect that Ulu would come to question his identity. The magic power last night was really terrifying. I could feel it even dozens of miles away, so I rushed here overnight. As soon as I got here, I heard what the townspeople were saying. The great hero Gildarts defeated Daily Yura and saved all the townspeople in the town. I originally wanted to say hello to Gildarts. After all, I knew him. But I didn't expect that I met an imposter. So now can you tell me, who are you? Why are you pretending to be Gildarts? Ulu squinted his eyes and stared at Ian, as if he was planning to take action if he disagreed. As you can see, I am indeed the Magister of Fairy Tale Guild. Ian didn't say anything and directly showed the fairy tale seal on his arm. At least this thing can't be faked. After Ulu saw the mark on Ian's body clearly, she was obviously stunned for a moment. She began to doubt her own judgment and Ian's intentions. Originally, in her opinion, Ian was thinking that under the guise of Daily Yura and Gildarts, he would use illusion magic to stage a self-directed show in the town and take the opportunity to harvest the town's wealth, but now it seems that she seemed to have guessed wrong. You know, that guy Gildarts has such a bad reputation. I used his name not only to cleanse the label on him, but also to consider the reputation of the Fairy Tale Guild. When Ian said this, he sighed helplessly. He really worked hard for Fairy Tale. Okay, I understand. The way you looked at Ian, she seemed to remember the first time she met Gildas. At that time, Gildarts left a deep impression on her. Although that guy was as strong as a monster, he was indeed quite disturbing. Thinking of this, Ulu walked up to Ian, patted his shoulder gently, and said, That's right, thank you for your hard work. Chapter 10 The Beginning of Gray's Abnormal Life. In this way, Gray successfully became a disciple of Ulu. Gray's life was clearly arranged between Ian and Ulu's laughter. This is why he was called a pervert. The beginning of the nickname, Fairy Tale Iceman. Since the demon Daily Yura who was ravaging the town has been completely eliminated by Ian. Ulu leaned over, looked at the young Gray under him, and smiled, And now, Gray, you have also become my disciple, then just come back to my home with me. You don't have a place to live anyway, right? Ulu glanced at this endless, seemingly empty village. Even the simplest wooden house would take 2 or 3 days to build with the help of magic, right? So to sum up, Ulu thinks that it is most appropriate for Gray to go home with her. Although the house in Ulu is not big, but daily necessities are all available. It is enough to ensure Gray's survival in this heavy snow. Speaking of which, I haven't had time to introduce myself to you yet. My name is URU Milkovich, and I am an ordinary mage of ice shape. Then, URU introduced his name without telling Gray. And identity. At the same time, when Ulu subconsciously turned her head and looked to her side, she finally remembered the white-haired boy who had been following her. So Ulu looked a little apologetic as he introduced Gray to the identity of this white-haired boy. Look at my memory, I forgot about your senior brother just now. Yes, this is him Gray, your senior brother Leon Bastia. I hope you can get along well in the future. Hello Gray, my name is Leon. Upon hearing this, Leon reached out to Gray and said hello. Hello, my name is Gray for pasta. Gray looked at the hand that Leon extended to him. After hesitating for a while, Gray took the initiative to hold it, and followed Leon and URU's example to introduce his identity. There really needs to be harmony between brothers and sisters. After Gray and Leon recognized each other's identities, Ulu showed a relaxed smile and continued, by the way, Gray, Leon and I live in a town about 30 miles to the west from here. Continue. There's going to be a tough battle ahead, so don't relax. Of course, if you feel unwell or don't have enough strength to hold on any longer, just tell me at any time. Master, I am still very kind to my disciples. URU said, winking playfully at Gray. Hey! Don't underestimate me. As far as physical strength is concerned, I am still very confident. Gray said stubbornly. In this case, I will leave with the child Gray. URU said and looked at Ian again, as if he was planning to leave with Gray and Leon. Ms. URU, our Gray will be entrusted to you from now on. However, just when URU was about to speak, Gray's father, Ian, and mother, Meihua, had already strode forward. They held URU's hand tightly, with tears in their eyes, and asked for their help seriously. You're Gray? When Wu Lu heard this, his expression was slightly startled. Yes, I am Gray's father. Ian Zigu introduced. I'm Gray's mother. Meihua sobbed while revealing her identity. Gray is not an orphan. URU was shocked by Jin and Meihua's words. She originally saw the way Ian made the decision on Gray's behalf and asked Gray to become her disciple. She thought Gray was an orphan. After all, as long as Gray still has a relative alive, it is not the turn of a complete stranger. At most, he has a chance to become a magician and make decisions for the other party. Such a big deal, right? As a result, Gray's parents were still alive and watching carefully from the side, while Ian, with a shy face, made the decision for Gray to become a disciple. Simply excessive. Hey! Ian, you didn't tell me that Gray's parents are still alive. I saw Ulu dodge and came to Ian. She grabbed Ian's collar and asked angrily, since his parents you are still here, why do you think that you should replace Gray's parents and ask Gray to become my teacher? Do you have this right? I didn't say Gray was an orphan. Ian was helpless and said to himself, I saved Gray's family, and they won't say anything about this little thing. You think, that's what you think. I'm really convinced by you fairy tale guild magisters. It doesn't matter whether you or guildarts. You may be so strong, but you don't have any common sense about life. You all give me a little sense of boundaries. Ulu said, with a smile on her face. She walked towards Ian and Meihua in a friendly manner, and after greeting the two of them for a while, she said softly, that's it, about Gray's upcoming appointment with me as his teacher and the need to spend time with his family. What do you think of separation and going to the town where I live to practice magic? It's all Ian's turn. Hearing this, Ian replied with a smile. Mr. Ian is our savior. You are right to listen to Mr. Ian. Besides, the child's father and I also believe that you, who are trusted by Mr. Ian, are just like Mr. Ian, a good person. So we can rest assured that we will leave this child Gray to you. Meihua also trusts Ian immensely. What do you think I'm saying? I make the decision, it's totally fine. After hearing this, Ian walked to Wooloo's side and smiled. Shut up, I'm really convinced. When Wooloo said this, she sighed helplessly. She really surrendered to the magisters of the Fairy Tale Guild. Gray, go say goodbye to your parents. Don't let your parents worry. Wooloo patted Gray's shoulder and signaled Gray to say his final goodbyes to his parents. Good. Upon hearing this, Gray immediately walked towards Ian and Meihua behind him, bowed and said, Father, Mother. I will follow Teacher Wooroo and work hard to practice magic. One day, I will become a powerful mage like Ian, defeat all enemies who dare to attack you, and protect you. Go, go. Seeing this, Ian waved his hand awkwardly towards Gray, signaling Gray to return to Wooloo quickly and don't make people wait in a hurry. I believe you can do it. Meihua gently patted Gray's shoulder. She was completely moved by Gray's words. Her son just said that he should work hard to practice magic so as to protect them in the future. Gray, he has really grown up. After Gray said goodbye to his father and mother, that is, Ian and Meihua, he immediately returned to Wooloo and said softly, Teacher Wooloo, I have made an agreement with my parents, and we can leave. In that case, let's set off now. You spoke weakly. Wooloo swore that she really didn't want to get involved with the magisters of the Fairy Tale Guild like Ian and Gildarts. Unfortunately, this world always backfires. Although, I don't want to ruin such a good atmosphere between you. Just when you was about to leave with Gray and Leon, and vowed never to have anything to do with the magician of the Fairy Tale Guild again in this life. Ian seemed to have discovered something. He walked to Wooloo and the others and said, but before we leave here, we still need to get rid of a certain little tail. After all, he has been observing us for so long, there is also a fee, you are right, right? No, just wait. What do you mean, before we leave? Hey! Ian, tell me clearly, what do we mean by this? Wooloo frowned, and she keenly discovered that there was something wrong with Ian's words. For example, who does this, us, mentioned by Ian include? Is this guy Ian also planning to leave with them? She has no intention of taking Ian to her town. Chapter 11 Ian, McGill, do you know? Your president, and, calls me Brother Ian in private. Come out. Or am I waiting to invite you out? Ian looked towards the woods in the distance and said coldly. Could it be that there are enemies there? Wooloo reacted immediately when she saw this. She made a fist with her right hand and smashed it into the palm of her left hand. She held up the ice-shaped magic posture and guarded the surroundings. As expected of the magician of Fairy Tale Guild, he actually discovered my existence. Just when Wooloo looked nervous, a tall evil ghost holding a monk's Zen staff, wearing a simple cassock, exuding a frightening aura and a hideous face, walked out of the woods and arrived. In front of Ian and you are? Seeing this, Wooloo's pupils shrank suddenly. Everyone, this is our first meeting. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Black Archbishop Keys, and I am a member of the 9 Gates of Hades. Of course, you may not have heard of my name. You just need to know that our gates to Hades are all demons in the book of the great black mage Zeref. Monk Zheng introduced himself. The devil in the book of Zeref? What is your relationship with Daily Yura? Wooloo was stunned for a moment, then realized something. She looked at Seng Zheng and asked loudly. It turns out that Master Dai Li Yura was also appointed by that gentleman to be a member of the 9 Ghost Clan, the highest cadre of the Gate of Hades. It's a pity that Mr. Daily Yura has been completely wiped out by you humans. Not even his body is left. The monk sighed helplessly. What's your conspiracy? Wooloo continued to trick Seng Zheng, hoping to get more information about the Gate of Hades from Seng Zheng. Conspiracy? You mean conspiracy? Seng Zheng sneered. He seemed to have heard something funny. A flash of joking flashed across his eyes, and he said coldly, our existence itself is the biggest conspiracy. Boom! Before Monk Zheng could say anything more, the majestic gravity was already pressing on his body. Forehead. Monk Zheng was careless and was crushed to the ground by Ian's gravity before he had time to dodge. Why are you talking so much to him? Send him directly to see Daily Yura. Ian raised his fingers slightly, and the gravity exerted on Seng Zheng's body also increased. Humans. The gates of Hades will not let you go. Lord of Hades Maldo Gil will avenge me. The monk was looking at Ian and roaring, he was unwilling to be wiped out like this. Dark Paradise Forbidden Space. When Ian raised his hand, the terrifying gravity instantly twisted into a huge hole in front of him. The gravity in the center of the hole was so huge that even light and shadow would be attracted by it and eventually be shattered by it. Not good. Seeing this, Uru immediately released the ice wall to help Gray and others block the aftermath of Ian's magic. Ah. No. As for Seng Zheng, who couldn't finish his harsh words, his spell itself is not good at fighting. After being targeted for destruction by the Dark Paradise released by Ian, he didn't even have the ability to resist, so he was sucked directly into the dark hole by the huge attraction, and then disappeared without a trace. It's as if this monk has never been to this world. So strong. This overwhelming power is beyond my reach even now. When the majestic gravity disappeared, Ulu lifted the ice wall. She first praised Ian's strength, then looked at Ian and asked, "You're going to kill him now? We haven't asked him clearly yet. Purpose of coming. It doesn't count. I just destroyed his body. His demon soul, together with his good brother Daily Yura, were imprisoned by me in the Dark Paradise and the Forbidden Space. So don't worry, it's okay." Problem. Ian has always been a good boy who knows how to save. How could he directly destroy such good nutrients as Seng Zheng and Daily Yura? These were all created by Mr. Zelfji back then. These fine demon souls. Of course I will save it for Mira Jane, who is about to join the guild. Gray and Leon, this is the first lesson I teach you. Never be merciful when you encounter a demon. Your kindness will only hurt yourself. Ian looked at Gray and Leon and spoke softly. Any creature that is attacked will feel pain, fear, or be exposed. But demons don't feel that way. Demons don't feel pain. Immortal Storm, etc., these are the early works of the Great Master. Natsu, huh? Finally. After both Seng Zheng and Daily Yura died, the Grey incident finally came to an end. However, Ian discovers that his simulation is not over. So after saying goodbye to Ian and Mei Hua, he followed Uru, Gray and Leon on a new journey. Don't follow me. In this regard, Ulu was speechless. I am Gray's guardian. Gray's parents personally entrusted me with this responsibility. Ian shrugged, and in the name of Gray's guardian, he went to Ulu's house to eat and drink with Gray. Mei Hua, it's time for us to take a quick trip. After Ian watched Gray and others leave, he looked at his beloved wife Mei Hua beside him and said softly. My dear, I listen to you. Mei Hua lay in Yin's arms and spoke shyly. Well, Gray's appearance was just a small accident. Mei Hua and Ian are true love. At the same time, Ian looked at Gray as he was leaving, thinking to himself, Gray, as a father, how could I put all the pressure on you? Don't worry, Mei Hua, and you will be protected by me. Before Ian left, he pointed out the way forward. Although the road ahead is extremely difficult and dangerous, for the sake of his wife and son, he will definitely successfully learn the legendary method of destroying demons, the demon-destroying technique. At the same time, known as Zerif's bookshelf, the gate of Hades of the Dark Magister Guild. Both Seng Zheng and Daily Yura were wiped out. Did a strong man among humans take action? It seems that I need to give humans a warning. It has been so long that they have forgotten the master of this continent. Who is it? In a dark guild. A dark-haired young man with disheveled hair and always holding a magic book in his arms sat quietly on the throne and took a nap. Suddenly, he seemed to feel something in his heart and opened his closed eyes. A sharp light seemed to flash in his eyes. However, just as the young man was about to leave, he suddenly noticed that the magic book in his hand was scorching with heat. No. That's not right. Those humans were trying to lure me out on purpose. Hundreds of years have passed, and their purpose has still not changed. They are still planning to steal the END book from my hand. Luckily I reacted. These damn and despicable humans, I will not let you succeed. The great book of END will be guarded by me, Maldo Gil. The young man muttered to himself, and he sat back on the throne again. He hugged the book in his hand tighter, and his wise eyes seemed to have seen through everything. If Ian were here at this moment, he would point at the nose of the young man in front of him and say with a smile, Mardo Gil, your guild leader END, Etelius Natsu Dragneel, is in the guild every day. He calls me Brother Ian. Chapter 12 Ian, for the sake of Urudia, go and beat Brian away. In the frosty snow. URU led Leon and Gray, braving the falling blizzard, and kept running. However, it is worth mentioning. No matter whether it was URU, Gray or Leon, the three of them were not wearing outer clothes. They only relied on a piece of underwear to protect themselves from the biting frost and cold. In this regard, Gray and Leon were shivering due to the wind and snow. Hey! Do you three just want to get rid of your clothes? Really, how many pieces of clothing have you lost these days? If this continues, there will be no way to open the pod at home. Ian, who had always been at the back of the crowd, looked at the three Ulu people, who once again dropped their clothes and had fun in the snow, and finally couldn't help but remind them loudly. Sorry. That Ian. I, Gray, and Leon, all the clothes for the three of us will be given to you. After URU heard Ian shouting loudly. Then she suddenly remembered the fact that she had accidentally thrown away her clothes again. So he couldn't help but apologize to Ian and winked playfully. There's really nothing I can do against you. Ian had no choice but to pack up the clothes that were ruthlessly abandoned on the snow by the three of Ulu. Well. When will this simulation end? After doing all this, Ian couldn't help but look up at the sky. Half a year had passed since Ian killed Daily Ura. During this half-year period, URU was responsible for taking Gray and Leon, the two little ones, to practice ice modeling magic, while Ian was responsible for washing and cooking for a few people. As for why Ian ended up like this? The main reason is that the food cooked by Ulu is really terrible. This guy Ulu cooks and specializes in making people hungry. As for how it tastes, she doesn't care at all, as long as the food is edible. Originally, Ian wanted to endure it. He didn't believe that Gray and Leon could continue to eat URU's dark cuisine. No, what URU cooks is not worthy of being called cooking. As a result, Gray and Leon were actually used to eating URU's food. Therefore, after a long time, Ian couldn't stand it anymore, so he consciously took over the cooking job from Ulu. Well, Ian can tolerate any kind of pain, except his own taste buds. As for the work of washing clothes, in this extremely cold place in the east and north, washing clothes is an extremely difficult job. Once the clothes are stained with water and blown by the cold wind, they become harder than armor. Fortunately, Ian has his own cleaning magic. He uses his unique gravity magic to clean dirt and sweat from clothes at the molecular level. At this point, the job of washing clothes also fell on Ian's shoulders. Fortunately, these trivial matters did not delay Ian's cultivation. In this half-year, Ian has firmly established himself at this inhuman level. Anyway, Ian is now confident enough to defeat Warrod Sequin, the elder of the Fairy Tale Guild who has magic power but is not good at fighting. He is the last king. But complaining, Ian will still complain. I originally came here to eat and drink. Why have we fallen to this point? I'm really an embarrassment to the Fairy Tale Guild, which has always been known as a freeloader. If this were that be ********** D Guildarts, he would be so embarrassed that he would do nothing. Ian sighed, reluctantly took his clothes and went home. Ian is still too kind. Speaking of which, Daily Ura and Black Archbishop have both been killed by me. It's time for that boy Gray to wake up from his childhood nightmare. Why hasn't this simulation ended yet? Ian wondered. According to his guess, the simulation about Gray should have ended as early as when he solved Daily Ura and Black Archbishop. Could it be said that there is something else Gray is unwilling to do? Humph. He is really a greedy child who wants both and wants. Other side. Hee hee. You seem to have been paying attention to Ian's movements. After Wooloo confirmed that Ian had left, she first chuckled, and then smiled at her two apprentices, Gray and Leon. That guy Ian finally went home. He still remembers the relationship I had with him before. Did you say that? Today seems to be Ian's birthday. In order to thank Ian for doing laundry and cooking for us over the past 6 months, how about we go to the city to buy him some fruits and cream, and bake him a birthday cake by ourselves? Yes, during the 6 months of getting along, Ian accidentally revealed his birthday. At that time, it was just something Ian said casually, but he didn't expect it to be written down by Ulu. It can be said that the speaker has no intention, but the listener has the intention. Oh. Upon hearing this, Gray and Leon waved their little fists, eager to give it a try. It's not that these two brats know how to be grateful, they are just celebrating that they can finally take a break today. By the way, they are very interested in making cakes. After all, he is a child. Once there is no hatred and pressure in their hearts, they will easily be full of curiosity and interest in everything in this world and things they have not tried. Ever since. Gray and Leon dug out from the snowdrifts at their feet the surprise they had hidden for Ian a few days ago. They claimed to Ian that they had accidentally lost their clothes while they were training. After putting them on, they set off towards the town. Sharia, as usual, bring some fruit. By the way, some more pineapples and mangoes, these are what Ian likes. Ulu came to the fruit stall she often frequented, greeted the proprietress familiarly, and bought some fruits that they usually eat, as well as the fruits that Ian likes to eat. Those two children. I remember they were called Gray and Leon, right? They are all good kids. The most important thing is that they are all handsome boys. They will be the kind to charm thousands of girls when they grow up. It's great, Ulu. You have two handsome young guys accompanying you. To be honest, I'm jealous. After Sharia prepared the fruits, cream and other condiments for the cake for Ulu, she looked behind Ulu at Gray and Leon who were playing together, and laughed softly. Like it? I'll give it to you, do you want it? When Ulu heard this, he preached without hesitation. No. I'm not interested in these two handsome boys of yours at all. I don't have time to wait for them to grow up. After all, by the time they grow up, I will also be old and lose my looks. On the contrary, if you are willing to bear the pain and give up my love, Ulu, why not give that handsome guy of yours to me? To be honest, I fell in love with him on the first day he came to the city. That good looks, those abs and that temperament. Tsk tisk tisk. When Sharia said this, she looked like a nymphomaniac. Sharia. Don't drip your saliva into the fruit I paid for. Seeing this, Ulu grabbed the wrapped fruit in Sharia's arms. Speaking of. Ulu, you are not young anymore. Do you really not consider living with that handsome guy? If you don't think about it, remember to inform me. I've been waiting for him. I remember his name was Ian, right? Sharia is still asking you for information about Ian. I want you to take care of it. Upon hearing this, Ulu walked away angrily holding the fruit in his arms. When you took Gray and Leon straight to the bakery to make a birthday cake for Ian, she vaguely kept murmuring, Ian's appearance, is he really that handsome? Why didn't I see it? If Ian were next to Ulu at this moment, he would definitely point at Ulu's eyes and laugh loudly, haha. You actually think I'm not handsome enough? It seems like you really should go see an ophthalmologist, my dear. Miss you. I am the face person of the Fairy Tale Guild. Every year in the magazine, I rank at the top of the list of mages I want to date the most. I am known as the friend of women and the killer of girls. It's just that Ian doesn't have that free time at this moment. Because, he finally found it. The reason why Gray's simulation never ended this time. Finally back. Mom, you must miss me, right? Etc. Then, who is that person? In the woods not too far from the wooden house in Ulu. A girl with a cute face, somewhat similar to Yu's appearance. At this moment, I am standing here in a daze. She stared at the wooden house in the distance with burning eyes, and was shocked to find that the small home she and her mother loved had actually changed its owner in these days. And that person is a hateful man. However, just like this, she suddenly discovered that the young man she had been observing, who was constantly cleaning the room with a broom in her mother's house, it had completely disappeared from her sight. Hey! This lovely lady. Do you need a little help? Without waiting for the girl to react, a magnetic voice sounded behind the girl. Forehead. When the girl heard this, she felt her heart tremble slightly. When the girl turned around and saw the face of the person who spoke clearly, she was dumbfounded. The speaker was the bad guy who had just disappeared from her sight and had been occupying her mother's house. Who are you? After the girl saw the face of the speaker clearly, she suddenly looked like a frightened deer. She looked extremely nervous and was ready to escape at any time. Hee. The young man, that is, Ian, was smiling at the moment, looking at the girl in front of him patiently, trying his best to look softer, and said softly, "Don't be afraid, brother is not a bad person." Nonsense. You are the big bad guy. That house obviously belongs to my mother and me. Why do you live there? Did you bully Mom? The girl used a soft Lolita tone and loudly rebuked Ian for his atrocities. Is it really the young Urrutia? Upon hearing this, Ian decisively determined the identity of the girl in front of him. The girl's name is Urrutia, which is Yu's daughter. The direct translation is Ulu's tears, so it is also commonly known as Sister Tears. Sister Tears, I don't know how many people are upset. In order to wash away the mistakes he made when he was young, he spent his youth and gambled everything he had in exchange for a life-saving minute for all the magisters who gathered in the capital to fight the dragon. It can be said that although Sister Tears has indirectly caused many tragedies, but he also used his own life to prevent many tragedies. Combined with Ulu's sacrifice, it can be said that both mother and daughter sacrificed themselves for Gray's life, which is simply unsatisfactory. But it doesn't matter. Now that Ian is here, there will be no problem. So, Ian looked at the young Urrutia, thinking about teasing him. Ian frowned slightly, pretending to be serious, looking at Urrutia in front of him, and asked, "So, you are Urrutia? You are Yu's daughter? Do you know my mother?" When Urrutia heard this, his eyes widened. Certainly. Ian first admitted that he was indeed familiar with Ulu. Then, I saw him flicking Urrutia gently, his white forehead, and said angrily, "Tell me. Why did you run away from home? Don't you know how worried your mother is about you? Is mother worried? Isn't it true that mother doesn't want me anymore?" When Urrutia heard this, tears could not help but rush out from her eyes. Naturally, Ian couldn't let Urrutia misunderstand Yu's good intentions. He continued to play the role of red face and said angrily, "You know, Yu did something to treat your magic syndrome. How much effort? How much thought was spent? I don't know how much price Ulu paid to have Brian, the director of the Magic Development Bureau, accept you. Why did you escape from the Magic Development Bureau a year ago? Ulu mistakenly thought you were dead." Ian pressed towards Urrutia. "A year ago? Run away?" Urrutia looked confused. She blinked her big eyes, looked at Ian with an aggrieved face, and said weakly, "Uncle, are you mistaken? I just escaped from the Magic Development Bureau last week. Come out. Don't call me uncle. Call me brother." Ian first corrected Urrutia's title to him. Ahem. Immediately afterwards, I only heard Ian cough lightly, pretending to be unaware, and continued, "However, as early as a year ago, Ulu did go to the Magic Development Bureau to find you. Brian, who was the director of the Magic Development Bureau at the time, said it himself. Tell your mother that you are dead." Boom! As Ian's words fell, extremely violent magic power surged out from Urrutia's body. With the help of the Magic Power Development Bureau, Urrutia's small body already possessed a power that was no weaker than the average guild's the magic power of a super magician. These overly powerful magic powers are completely overloading Urrutia now. It's no wonder Ulu is so anxious. He's lying to my mother. That hateful guy, he is lying to my mother. He also cheated on me. He said that my mother didn't want me anymore. I'm going back to settle the score with him. Urrutia roared angrily. She now wished she could go back to the Magic Development Bureau and kill Brian, an old thief. I see. In other words, that guy named Brian is not a son of a man. He not only deceived your mother, he also deceived you. He kept stirring up trouble between you, mother and daughter, just to keep you here and cooperate with his Development Bureau in conducting experiments? That's right, right? Ian pretended to be surprised and concluded. Yes, that's right. Urrutia didn't seem to expect that Ian's understanding was so strong. In just a few words, he understood the grudges between their mother and daughter and Brian. So, she slowly put away her magic power, looked at Ian and nodded. If that's the case, then things are simple. Let's wait for your mother to come back first and tell her everything that happened over the years. Then, completely resolve the misunderstanding between you mother and daughter. Finally, we beat the hell out of Brian. Ian said. He reached out his hand and rubbed Urrutia's little head gently. Chapter 13 Mother and daughter recognize each other. Inside the cozy wooden house. Ian wore an apron and kept going back and forth between the kitchen and the dining room. Plate after plate of sumptuous dishes were brought to the table by him. Today was a good day for a happy reunion, and he had to show off his skills. Speaking of which, the original wooden house in Ulu was not big, with only one room, and the bathroom and kitchen were also slightly small. It would be just right if this wooden house was just where you and his daughter Urrutia lived. Even with the addition of Gray and Leon who have not yet grown up, it would not be too crowded. After all, they are children. However, it was different when it came to Ian. After all, Ian was already a handsome guy, and he was about the same age as Ulu. Although he didn't mind being slept with Ulu and others at night. But when I think about the chain reaction that will happen next. Well, when Ian goes to bed at night, he can't stand being too crowded. Don't worry about it. The relationship between Ian and Uru is pure friendship. Therefore, Ian expanded Ulu's wooden house at night. Not only did he renovate the dining room, kitchen and bathroom, he also expanded Ulu's room and built 4 more guest rooms. In this case, Gray, Leon and Ian all have their own exclusive rooms. In addition, there is a spare guest room in case guests come. But now, this spare guest room has a new purpose. After Ian finished cooking a table of delicious meals, he took off his apron and pulled Urrutia, who had always been obedient and sensible, to help him. His soft little hands entered the room, and he used gravity magic. After re-cleaning the guest room, which was small but somewhat warm, he gently rubbed Urrutia's little head and said softly, "Did you see it? No matter when, you always live in Ulu's heart. This will always be your home and there will always be your room." Woo-woo. When Urrutia heard this, her eyes naturally turned red, and one drop after another, crystal clear tears poured out from her eyes and fell on the floor of the wooden house. Mother. The longing in Urrutia's heart burst out uncontrollably at this moment. She wished she could throw herself into Uru's arms now and enjoy Uru's warm chest. Don't worry, Ulu and the others have gone to train and will probably be back soon. Speaking of which, Ulu has accepted 2 junior brothers for you and will introduce them to you later. Ian continued to rub Urrutia's little head and whispered. Urrutia nodded slightly, and turned slightly sideways, keeping a slight distance from Ian so that Ian's big hands could not touch her head. If Ian rubbed it further, her head would be rubbed bald. Next, time passed minute by minute. About half an hour later. Suddenly there was movement at the door of the wooden house. Naturally, the 3 Ulu people who baked the cake are back. After Gray and Leon pushed open the door of the cabin. Ulu held a freshly baked cake and walked into the living room with a smile. She looked at the dining room, where steaming delicious dishes had been prepared. She sat at the long table and quietly waited for them to return. Ian smiled and said, "Happy birthday, Ian. Thank you for taking care of us in the past 6 months." However, when Ulu noticed a sleeping little cutie leaning against Ian's side, her words came to an abrupt end. I saw Ulu's body beginning to tremble involuntarily. She widened her eyes and looked carefully at the small figure who was dozing at the dinner table, sitting obediently next to Ian. At this moment, Yu's spirit was in a trance. She would not admit her mistake. This figure was what made her dream about her all day and all night, her good daughter Urrutia. Urrutia is still alive? At this moment, Yu couldn't care about anything else. She didn't even care about the cake in her hand. She threw it directly into the sky and rushed to Urrutia. She wanted to hug Urrutia, who was at the dinner table, in her arms, but she was afraid of the Urrutia in front of her. Just like the hallucinations she had in the past when she missed her too much, it was just a phantom. This made her unable to put her hands down. She just used her hands to cry. The hoarse voice asked, "Urrutia, is it really you? Urrutia, wake up, look who's coming." After Urrutia escaped from the Magic Development Bureau, he ran all the way to his hometown. The journey was really exhausting. In Urrutia, she was sure that her mother did not want her, but there were villains who were sowing trouble among them. The estrangement between her and her mother was just a misunderstanding. Her tight sien, she completely relaxed and fell asleep leaning on Ian's shoulder. Even the return of Ulu and others failed to wake her up. As for Yu, how dare Yu wake up Urrutia? In her eyes, Urrutia is the most precious treasure in the world. Ever since, it was Ian who took action, gently pinched Urrutia's round face, and woke up the little cutie who had fallen asleep beside him with a small mouth. Urrutia woke up and first rubbed her sleepy eyes. After she successfully saw the person coming, she rushed directly into Uru's arms without hesitation and cried loudly, "Mom! I'm back, oh! Woohoo! Urrutia misses you so much! Urrutia, my daughter! Mom misses you too! Mom is sorry for you! Mom should not leave you alone in the Magic Development Bureau." When Urrutia's little hands tightly hugged Ulu's waist, Ulu realized that the daughter in front of her was not a phantom, but a real person. She used all her strength to hold her daughter in her arms, telling how much she has missed her daughter over the years. "Anyway, let's eat first. Let's talk while eating." Ian held a square box, looked at the miserable mother and daughter in front of him, and sighed helplessly. What he is holding in his arms at the moment is naturally the cake baked for him by Ulu himself. Just now, when Ulu threw the cake into the sky, fortunately, he had quick eyesight and used gravity magic to save the cake, keeping it floating in the air without falling. This way we avoided the ending of this good cake falling to pieces. After listening to Ian's words, everyone immediately took their seats and ate the food on the table. "Urrutia, try this. This is delicious. This is Ian's specialty. This dish is delicious too." After sitting down, Ulu kept taking chopsticks and knives and forks to prepare dishes for her daughter Ulu. Ulu's love for Urrutia seemed to be overflowing. She seemed to want to transfer all the love she had shown to her daughter over the years to her. All debts must be made up. "Mom! No, I can use chopsticks and a knife and fork." Urrutia blushed and gently pushed her overly enthusiastic mother. "My Urrutia doesn't want me anymore, she's starting to distance herself from me, ugh." When Ulu saw this, he immediately looked sad. No. Urrutia loves mother the most. Urrutia did not expect that her mother's heart was so fragile, and she quickly leaned into Uru's arms. "My Urrutia is the most well-behaved and sensible." A second ago, Yu, who was still wiping her tears, looked at Urrutia, who had thrown herself into the trap, with a bit of cunning in her eyes. She was very happy in her heart, holding Urrutia's pink and jade-carved hand in her arms. "I gave her a few kisses on her cheeks, and it turned out that the daughter I gave birth to was the cutest. Ah! I was fooled." Urrutia knew it, but was helpless. Anyway, after a meal, the barrier between Urrutia and Yu has been eliminated. After all, she is a mother. Even if there is a real estrangement, there is no overnight hatred. What's more, they were provoked by others. When Yu heard about the inhuman experiences Urrutia had experienced over the years, her eyes were already red. At this moment, Yu had the intention to kill. This was also the first time she had the intention to kill. She squeezed her eyes tightly and said angrily, "I'm going to settle the score with that B***************** D. Brian. How dare you use my daughter for experiments? Do you really think that I, Ulu, am easy to bully? Chapter 14 I'm here to beat you up. How can something like revenge be left out without me?" Ian smiled, beat Brian and so on, of course he also participated in it. "Ian, today is your birthday. I'm already very upset about not being able to let you celebrate the holiday in a down-to-earth manner. Why do I dare to involve you in my personal grudges? Besides, that guy Brian is the director of the Magic Development Bureau and is affiliated with the Magic Council. He has a very deep background and will cause trouble for you and the guild behind you." Ulu frowned, looking at Ian with eyes full of apologies. I thought that in the past 6 months of getting along, we were already friends. Between friends, you should help each other. If you are so polite to me, then you will think that I have misjudged you, and I will leave here now," Ian said, making a sad gesture, and was about to pack up and leave as he spoke. "No. That's not what I meant." Seeing this, Ulu looked slightly excited. She stood up from her seat and subconsciously held Ian's hand. "Oh." Teacher Wooloo took Brother Ian's hand. They actually held hands. It seems that as expected from what Aunt Sharia said, Teacher Wooloo and Brother Ian are having an affair. Leon looked at Ulu, who was so excited and held Ian's hand to prevent him from leaving. The corners of his mouth kept rising and he snickered. As for Gray, he was working hard and had no idea what was happening at the moment. Maybe Gray doesn't care at all about what happened. Really? As for Urudia, she looked like she had solved the case. She said that it was absolutely right to call her Uncle Ian. Maybe it would not be long before she could change her name. I'm really convinced. Wooloo never thought in his life that he would be teased by a group of children with no hair. As a result, the big-hearted Wooloo was not mentally prepared. The blush on her face flashed away, and finally she angrily let go of Ian's hand and roared, "Forget it. If you are willing, if you come, let's go together. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Who do you think I am? We, the magicians of Fairy Tale Guild, are never afraid of trouble." As a fairy tale native, Ian has never taken trouble seriously. This guy Ulu is unexpectedly innocent. At the same time, Ian looked at Ulu, who turned away and chuckled, then countless cold sweats suddenly broke out on his forehead. "No. That's not right. I forgot again, I'm not dreaming. I almost did something wrong again. By then, I'm afraid it will really be an accident." Ian felt that the character he flirted with one after another must be because he was so familiar with that guy Gildarts, and he was infected by that damn scumbag. Having said that, Ian is pure love. He pointed out that if you dare to be sorry to Irene, you will probably be destroyed by a burst of God's star. Who did you kid learn these words from? What's wrong with learning? You have to learn from the blue cat, Happy, who wasn't born yet. Ian said, and hit Leon hard on the head. I don't understand it at all. Leon's eyes were filled with tears when he was hit by Ian's loving iron fist. There was a confusion in his eyes, as if he didn't understand what Ian meant at all. You don't need to understand. Anyway, everyone, get ready and beat that B************* D. Brian away. Ian shouted loudly. Oh. This time, Gray responded. As soon as this kid heard that he could knock others away, he immediately got excited. He can be said to be a born fairy tale person. Other side. Magic Development Bureau. Reporting to the director, experimental subject number 3373 has not returned yet. A group of magic researchers in uniform stood in front of a man with long white hair and spoke nervously. You must find her back for me. Do you know? That is the daughter of Ulu, who is known as the Holy 10 level. Such materials are rare. Even if all the remaining materials in the entire Development Bureau are added together, they cannot be compared with Ulu's daughter. The man is naturally Brian, the current director of the Magic Development Bureau. At the same time, he is also a corner of the Balam Alliance, one of the 3 major dark magician guilds, the leader and actual controller of the 6 Demon Generals Guild. As for the president of the 6 Demon Generals, Wu, it's just another personality of Brian. The reason why, with great ambitions, was to set up the Dark Guild from the very beginning, and he despised the Magic Council from the bottom of his heart. When he started doing things, Brian, who had always been unscrupulous, would appear in the Magic Development Bureau and serve as the director. The purpose is precisely to find geniuses who can help him suppress another personality in his body, that is, the president's no personality. Yes, Brian has been troubled by the violent personality of Wu for many years. After he spent countless hours, he finally thought of a way to suppress impersonality. That is to find 5 geniuses, perform living connection magic with them, use the magic power and life of these geniuses to make locks, and completely seal Wu. Urrutia is one of the geniuses selected by Brian. It's a pity that this genius has escaped now, which makes Brian extremely angry. Although, even if Urrutia did not escape, she would not be able to become a member of the living body connection with Brian. What Brian needs is a genius, but he doesn't need a monster like nothing. Urrutia perfectly inherited the talent of his mother Uru, and was even better. Not to mention becoming a strong man at the level of the 10 great holy magisters. Urrutia even has great potential to surpass Holy 10. If Urrutia persists and practices with concentration, it is only a matter of time before he surpasses the President Wu, whose magic power is said to be equal to the top 10 holy magisters. If Urrutia is stronger than both President Wu and Brian, then the living body connection magic will naturally not be able to be established. This also applies to the later generations, Jalal and ERZA of the Tower of Paradise. They are all people who are too talented and too powerful to connect with Brian. They even make Brian fearful, knowing that they cannot control them, and are eventually abandoned by Brian. Certainly. Now that Ian is here, there is no such thing as the Tower of Paradise. At least, the Tower of Paradise has nothing to do with Brian and President None. Useless trash. Just when Brian was angry that so many adults in the Magic Development Bureau could not look down on a child, several hurried figures quickly ran towards Brian. Brian frowned slightly when he saw this. What's going on that makes you so worried? Didn't I tell you? You are not allowed to run in the Development Bureau. Brian looked at the visitor and scolded angrily. Director Brian, we found experimental subject number 3373. When the staff heard this, they quickly explained the reason for their panic. Okay. Where is experimental subject number 3373? Bring her back to me quickly. Brian preached excitedly. Well, although experimental subject number 3373 has returned, she also came back with the Holy 10 level Ice Mage URU. The staff was a little embarrassed and continued to preach. What? Take me over quickly and have a look. Brian's expression suddenly changed, and he spoke in a panic. Boom! In one of Brian's rare moments of panic, accompanied by a deafening explosion, a figure wrapped with powerful magic power suddenly descended from the sky and came to everyone. You are? Brian couldn't help but feel nervous as he looked at the person coming. The last time he faced such a strong and oppressive person was when he communicated with the legendary second-generation president of the Fairy Tale Guild. Hit your man. Without waiting for Brian to think more, the man had already arrived in front of Brian and punched Brian in the face. Chapter 15. Ian, do you know who I am? Don't you know I can do magic? Who on earth are you? Damn it. Do you know who the adult you just beat away is? Do you know what the price will be for injuring that adult? After Ian successfully broke through the defense barrier of the Magic Development Bureau, invaded the interior of the Development Bureau, and punched Brian away as the director of the Magic Development Bureau. The Development Bureau staff, as well as the magic researchers who specialized in magic development, slowly came to their senses, and they all angrily yelled at Ian. Then do you know who I am? Ian looked at the researchers in front of him and asked. Forehead. Do you know who he is? No, I haven't heard of it. He is not included in the lists of the S-class magisters of the major guilds and the top 10 holy magisters. Could he not be an S-class mage? Impossible. The other party can break through our defense in an instant and knock Director Brian away. It's absolutely extraordinary. As Ian asked the question, the researchers present were all stunned. They looked left and right, asking and discussing with each other. After all, they were also researchers, and they had some brains. They knew that Ian was very powerful and his identity was definitely not simple. Unfortunately, they looked through it all after getting the information, they didn't figure out Ian's identity. After looking at each other for a while, they all showed confused looks. Obviously, they don't know Ian's identity. In the end, they could only look at Ian and shake their heads. No, I don't know. Have no idea? Then let you know, no. Ian didn't waste any time. With a wave of his hand, he released a purple magic circle that covered the entire Magic Development Bureau. The huge gravity magic fell directly on every researcher present. Boom! Faced with these guys who are working for the Tiger and colluding with Brian, Ian didn't hold back at all, and with the huge roar, the terrifying gravity violently pushed each researcher to the ground, and completely crushed each of their knees. It hurts. It hurts so much. Help. Help me. I was wrong. Don't kill me, I'm still useful. My head is full of knowledge. These researchers were fascinated by Ian's gravity. Their internal organs were rolling inside their bodies, and large mouthfuls of blood were coughed out from their mouths. I won't kill you because I don't want to cause trouble to you and Eurudia. Ian looked at the group of scum in front of him, and he really wanted to take action and kill them all. Unfortunately, before the Magic Council determines the evil deeds of the Magic Development Bureau, if he kills all these bastards, it will probably cause a lot of trouble. Although Ian is not afraid of trouble, he can only endure it in order not to involve the mother and daughter Eurudia and Eurudia, as well as the young Gray and Leon. Ian, you ran too fast. Just as the killing intent in Ian's eyes flashed away. Along with a burst of cold air, snowflakes fell from the huge hole opened by Ian in the sky. Several figures appeared in the hole, looking inside. Ice shape, stairs. Immediately afterwards, along with a faint blue magic circle, an ice staircase printed with a rose pattern suddenly formed in midair and connected to Ian's side. The next second, Eurudia led Eurudia, Gray and Leon through the stairs made of ice and quickly came to Ian's side. Haha. I originally wanted to solve all the problems here before you arrived. It seems that my movements are still a little slow, and I am still not decisive enough when I do things. I have to pay attention next time. Ian looked at Ulu and others and smiled. Really? This is obviously my family matter, but you have to handle it all. What's going on? Upon hearing this, Ulu complained to Ian. Hey, sooner or later we will all be a family. Sooner or later we will trick Ulu and others into joining the Fairy Tale Guild. Ian patted Ulu's shoulder familiarly and smiled. Huh? Who has become a family with you sooner or later? Ulu's face turned red and purple, and she knocked down Ian's hand on her shoulder. Huh, let me tell you, there is indeed an affair between them. Well. I believe you. My daughter's eyes are sharp. Leon and Eurudia looked at each other and snickered. Gray still looked confused and took off his shirt. Where's that Brian? Ulu took a deep breath, adjusted his mentality, and looked at Ian and asked. Over there. He punched me in the face, and I'm afraid he's fainted now. Ian pointed to Brian lying in the ruins in the distance and said softly. These researchers? Then, Ulu looked at the researchers who fell to the ground all around, with a bit of inquiry in his eyes. These researchers are all insiders of the Magic Enhancement Plan. As a result, they not only chose to help Brian conceal the truth about the Magic Development Agency and failed to report it to the Magic Council in time, but they also assisted Brian in conducting experiments on children. I didn't kill them all directly here. Instead, I disabled their magic source and smashed them half to death. I already considered that the Magic Council still doesn't know about the shady activities behind the Magic Development Bureau. Ian explained, looking at you. No. I mean, you acted lightly. Just leave them alive. I think their limbs can be broken. Upon hearing this, Ulu shook his head slightly towards Ian. She said that Ian completely misunderstood her. She doesn't blame Ian for being too harsh, but she blames Ian for being too light. I saw Ulu waving her hands, one after another, exuding a terrifying cold air, and transparent blades made of ice condensed and formed around her. Spare our lives. Seeing this, these researchers prayed one after another. Go and beg for mercy from the children you tortured. As Ulu spoke, the ice blade in his hand continued to fire, instantly cutting off the limbs of these Magic Development Bureau researchers, and while cutting off these limbs, he used ice to stop their bleeding. While URU is cruel, he also has a hint of kindness. Ah! For a time, the entire Magic Development Bureau screamed repeatedly. Forehead. Seeing this, Ian couldn't help but shudder. Therefore, do not provoke those single mothers, especially do not touch their cherished children. If they get angry, they will really kill you. Being a mother means being strong. Boom! Just then, Brian, who collapsed in the ruins, suddenly burst out with terrifying magic power. Immediately afterwards, Brian's body seemed to be unconscious, quietly suspended in mid-air. Ha ha ha. Unblocked. The seal on Lousy has finally disappeared. That idiot Brian was knocked down by someone? How pitiful. Forget it, let me make a break with the enemy. As bursts of powerful magic were released from Brian's body, he suddenly opened his eyes, unlike Brian, who looked wise before. At this moment, Brian's eyes became extremely scarlet, like an evil ghost walking out of hell. There was endless madness in his eyes, as if he had changed into a different person. Let me take a closer look. Who is the guy who defeated Brian? Brian, who seemed to have lost his personality, said that as he landed gently on the ground from the air and looked into the distance. When he saw URU and Ian standing opposite him, he suddenly fell silent. Chapter 16 Ulu, I'm waiting for the magic CD. What are you waiting for? Waiting for death? This is Brian, that noob, who can challenge me. Brian is a piece of trash that even the bastards from the Light Magister Guild may not be able to successfully pass the S-Class Magister assessment held by the Light Magister Guild. How on earth did I provoke such a powerful monster as my enemy? Brian. Don't call me boss anymore. You can change your name to Pig Brain from now on. He's causing trouble to me all day long. I just yawned, and you provoked an enemy of this level for me? You really want me to die? When Wu saw the moment in the distance where URU and Ian were quietly waiting for him to transform, his whole body went numb. Ulu is not bad. Although Ulu is a magician at the Holy 10 level, he is not bad at all. He is also a magician at the Holy 10 level. Even if they fight with Ulu, it will still be between brothers. If they don't fight hard, no one can do anything to the other. But what happened to the kid standing next to Ulu? The first time he saw the opposite side, he was startled. The other party unintentionally unleashed the magic power wildly and passionately. Just standing still gave him a great sense of oppression. Suddenly, he thought that the old monster Hades, Precito, the second-generation president of the Fairy Tale Guild, was here to settle a score with him. How to fight here? Wu frowned, and large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. I have no intention of becoming an enemy of you two. You are all powerful magisters. You should be able to feel that although Brian and I are one body, we are actually two people. Brian is actually our common enemy. It's true. The reason why he sneaked into the Magic Development Bureau, and after becoming the director, he searched for children with magical talents and conducted magic experiments. In fact, it was just to completely block me and let me sleep forever. That despicable guy is simply shameful. Now that I am out of trouble, I will naturally take the time to completely eliminate Brian's personality and make him unable to stand up forever. From this point of view, we should be regarded as companions with the same enemy. Wu's voice softened, losing the arrogance he had just now. Well, Wu is just a bit of a hero, but he's not a big fool. On the contrary, he is a genius in the magic way. To be precise, in the continent of Ishgar, where due to the competition between major forces, magic has declined extremely seriously, and countless powerful magics have become lost magic, people who have cultivated to the level of the Holy Ten, he is a hero among men and a genius among geniuses. Therefore, it is certain that the enemy is invincible. Even if he releases the super magic, Genesis 0, that he has at the bottom of the box, he has no confidence that he can defeat the two people. After that, he has no choice but to show weakness first and strive to end this boring dispute in a peaceful way. Wu believes that the two people in front of him are not stupid. After a master at the Holy Ten level shows weakness and gives them enough face, they probably won't press forward step by step. Unfortunately, Wu overestimated his own strength and underestimated Yu and Ian's determination. If it was Lao Pu who came instead of Wu, maybe Ian would give up and make peace for the time being and run away with Ulu and others. Well, even Ian, who has now entered the level of a king, is completely unsure of how he can beat the first-generation foursome, except for Mavis, who has the most talent. Warrod, who has been oppressed since he was young, has now reached the level of King of Heaven. After leaving the Fairy Tale Guild, he completely fell into the magic path, and has been our G-Zerif's magic book for decades. But a mere nothing? In the words of Ekizan Ryoma, it's not even close. You come and I come? Ian asked, looking at Yu. You hold the line for me, I'll go. As Wooloo spoke, she moved slightly, her white neck, and said angrily, this revenge will be completely meaningless if you don't avenge it yourself. Okay. Then I'll leave him to you. I won't take action unless absolutely necessary. When Ian heard this, he smiled and nodded gently. It was as if Ian and Ulu had decided to eat nothing today, and they did not take the nothing at the Holy Ten level into consideration at all. This friend. Don't think that because your magic power is deeper than mine, you can do whatever you want on this continent. The real magic is more powerful than you can imagine. Have you ever stared into the abyss? You know nothing about the power of those who fall into the abyss of evil. Before the people behind me take action, I advise you to take care of yourself and leave on your own. There is no grudge between you and me. I will deal with that D. Brian, so I won't bother you too. You are still young, so don't make the same mistake again and again. The veins on Wu's forehead were tight. He no longer knew how long it had been since he had felt the feeling of being despised. It's been so long that he has almost forgotten this feeling that makes him angry from the bottom of his heart. But Wu didn't dare to break out, because the other party had the capital to despise him. Therefore, Wu can only place his hope on the people behind him. Although Wu really doesn't want to use that person's name. Although in his eyes, he and that adult had a cooperative relationship, the other party probably just regarded him as a pawn. But speaking of it, there may be no one in the eyes of that adult. He regards everything that can be used as a pawn to achieve his goal, including himself. Ian was a little speechless. Wu said it as if he had become a villain. No, so you talk so much? Ian looked at Nun and mocked. You. Sweat broke out on Wu's forehead. He wanted to scold Ian, but he didn't dare. The person who fell into the abyss of the devil's path, are you talking about President Precto? No, now, we should call him Hades. When Ian said this, he looked at Wu with a bit of amusement in his eyes. What? Nun didn't expect Ian to know his background so well. Maybe you don't understand. Precito is the second-generation president of our Fairy Tale Guild. Even if you invite him out, he is still facing me. Ian was planning to make Wu understand clearly. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing the Fairy Tale Guild logo on his upper arm. But Ian was right. Once he met Lao Pu, if he couldn't fight or run away, then he would directly blow himself up and say that everything he did was to protect the first-generation president Mavis. I am willing to pay any price for Mavis. By then, Precito, the old Lolita control, and the ultimate twisted first-generation chef, will probably show a cowardly look, and softly said, it seems that Makarov's guild is not without understanding people. Fairy Tale Guild, the future is left to you. Ahem. Wu looked at the mark on Ian's arm, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his mouth opened wide at the same time. You are the wizard of Fairy Tale Guild. Wu couldn't believe it, and he revealed Ian's identity loudly. Boom! Just when Wu was panicking, the majestic gravity fell from above, catching Wu by surprise. Ice Shape Infinite Rose World. On the other side, Yu, who had been gathering magic power since Wu talked to Ian, directly released his strongest magic, other than absolute ice. Boom! The terrifying Rose World directly enveloped Wu, and the temperature that dropped instantly seemed to freeze Wu's blood vessels. I'm waiting for the magic power to gather. What are you waiting for? Waiting for death? Wu Lu looked at Wu, who was caught off guard by her. Half of his body was pierced and frozen in place, with a trace of teasing in his eyes. As he spoke, the ice rose suddenly shrank, and the ice thorns immediately pierced Wu's body. Chapter 17 Fairy Tale, you had my childhood, but you may not still be alive. Hateful. Wu was bleeding from his mouth. He could feel the passage of his life. He must not fall here. Wu instantly mobilized the magic power in his body, gathered it at his fingertips, and shouted loudly, Genesis ZE. Dark Paradise. Unfortunately, Ian was one step ahead of Wu after all. The Dark Paradise he released suddenly appeared behind Wu and sucked Wu into him. You lie. You said you wouldn't take action. Wu had eaten 2 holy 10-level magics in a row. Not only was he unable to use his ultimate move, but even the magic power in his body was exhausted. At the end of his life, he looked at Ian, roared, You shameless liar. Despicable and shameless magisters of light. Idiot, as a dark mage, you actually believe in the enemy. There is disdain in Ian's eyes. His principle is that if we can go together, we must go together. If we can bully the less, we will never fight alone. Boom! Without waiting for a reaction, his magic power and personality were completely sealed into the Dark Paradise. Only Brian, an ordinary person, was left, and he fell heavily to the ground. Speaking of which, at this last moment, they actually completed the separation they dreamed of. This guy still needs to go to the Senate to face trial. We can't kill him for the time being. Ian looked at Ulu and said softly. When such a big incident happens, someone has to stand up and take the blame, and there is no one more suitable to take the blame than Brian. Besides, this itself is Brian's fault. Is this guy really dead? Oh, it's okay, I just fainted. It's just that the source of magic power is completely destroyed, and I can only be an ordinary person for the rest of my life. But it doesn't matter, he won't live long anyway. After Ian killed Wuhan, he walked up to Brian and kicked Brian's body. After making sure that the other party was just unconscious and not really dead, he breathed a sigh of relief. Have you seen it? This is the price for those who fall into darkness. Then, Ian turned his head, looked at Gray and Leon behind him, and educated loudly, If you don't learn well in the future, you will also pay the corresponding price. The price. So you must follow your master Wulu, study magic well, and make progress every day. Gray and Leon stood there. They didn't know why, but they always felt that Ian was the mage who fell into darkness. First of all, Ian doesn't mean what he says and has no decent style. Secondly, even though Ian clearly had a huge advantage, he still chose to make a secret move. I can beat you head-on because I am strong. I am as steady as an old dog, and I never tire of deceit. Of course, Gray and Leon only dared to think about it in their hearts, but they didn't dare to say anything in front of Ian. The next step is to rescue all the children who were captured for experiments in the entire Magic Development Bureau. After Ian said this, he looked at Ulu and asked, Ulu, have you notified the Magic Council? Courtyard? We have been notified, they are on their way. Ulu nodded repeatedly. Long before they came to the Magic Development Bureau to cause trouble with Brian, Ulu had already reported this matter to the Senate. The Senate stated that they would convene the members and convene a council meeting to discuss this matter. After waiting so long, Wooloo left a message: "We have gone to the Magic Development Bureau to help you arrest people. Just remember to send the custody team over." When the head of the Magic Council heard this, his mouth opened wide in shock. Unfortunately, before he could say anything more, URU and Ian came to the Magic Development Bureau to fight. Tens of minutes later. With the rescue of Ulu and others, all the children imprisoned in the entire Magic Development Bureau have been released. They were placed outside the Development Bureau by URU. As for these researchers, and Brian, who is the director, they were all frozen in place by URU, waiting for the detention team of the Magic Council to come over. After doing all this, Ian took URU, Urudia, Gray and Leon back to the Development Bureau and came to the huge magic developer. Is this what they use to harm people? Wooloo looked at the instrument in front of him and immediately raised his right hand, intending to completely destroy the entire instrument as he spoke. URU, calm down. Just when Ulu was about to take action, Ian stopped Ulu. He looked at the instrument in front of him and said softly, "Although this thing is a bit violent, the effect of developing magic power is indeed real. You two little guys, are you interested in giving it a try?" Ian looked at Gray and Leon and asked with a smile. Ian. URU was very angry after hearing what Ian said. She felt that Ian was betting on the future of Gray and Leon. Sister Urudia, does she have to accept the torture of this thing every day? Gray and Leon looked at each other, then looked at Ian and asked. Yes. Ian nodded gently and answered seriously. Then we have to give it a try. Gray and Leon looked at each other and made a decision immediately. Ian. URU stopped Ian again. Don't worry, I have my own sense of discretion. Ian gently patted Ulu's shoulder and said comfortingly. Alas. In the end, URU couldn't defeat Ian, Gray and Leon, and nodded helplessly in agreement. Boom. Then, under Ian's gravity magic, the wires wrapped around Gray and Leon's bodies in an orderly manner. Well, in order to protect these two little guys, Ian decided to let them both come together and turn on the lowest gear. Come on. Ian said and opened the door directly. Zitzizi. Accompanied by a harsh sound of electricity. It hurts so much. Gray and Leon let out miserable screams. Aha. Seeing this, Ian suddenly felt like he had found a treasure. This thing can be carried back to the fairy tale. Help those tough kids like Natsu develop their magic power. In addition, it can also educate those ignorant Dark Guild magisters. It can also educate those naughty little guys in the guild. It kills 3 birds with 1 stone. It is a perfect magic weapon. Whoever invented this thing is a genius. Ian thought of this and glanced at the half-dead Brian beside him. Well, it's a pity that the genius is dead. He did it himself just now. For a moment, Ian seemed to see the near future. A group of people from the Dark Magister Guild yelled at Fairy Tale bastards, you bastards bathed in the light, you don't understand our feelings at all. If you had our childhood, you may not have we are half-hearted. In this regard, Fairy Tale people said, you have our childhood, but you may not still be alive. Chapter 18 Ian, I'm waiting for you in the future. After Ian made his decision, he no longer hesitated. After Ian asked Gray and Leon to have a little experience with the power of this magic developer. Ian used his gravity magic to rescue Gray and Leon from the developer. 1. It doesn't hurt at all. Gray and Leon, their upper bodies naked at the moment, were enduring the pain. If you look carefully, you will naturally find that there are crystal tears spinning in their eyes. Puff. Urutia looked at the 2 younger brothers who were pretending to be strong in front of him and couldn't help but chuckle. Sister Urutia, have you ever suffered like this before? You are so awesome. After Gray and Leon looked at each other, they expressed admiration towards Urutia. You are also very powerful. Children who don't cry are great. Urutia's emotional intelligence is still very high, and she comforts Gray and Leon. Obviously Urutia really regards Gray and Leon as his biological brothers. Then you 2 brats are overthinking. In order to protect the lives of you 2 brats. Only the lowest power of this magic developer is activated. And what Urrutia endures every day. But the magic developer is overloaded with stimulation. With your current physical fitness and strength, you cannot withstand that level of magic power development. But Ian is not as easy to talk to as Urrutia. He came here this time just to pour cold water on Leon and Gray, these two brats. The two brats in the province have been shouting all day long. They have learned all the magic of Ulu and can now stand alone. Ian must make these two brats clearly realize the gap in strength between them and the real geniuses among their peers. Only in this way can they be stimulated to chase after them. Although Gray and Leon are considered geniuses in ice modeling magic. Is the gap really that big? Gray and Leon looked slightly dazed after hearing this. It was the first time that they realized their own weakness. Because they have been living in the small town of Ulu, they have never met anyone of their own age who is stronger than them. So in the past, they were often complacent. As for this complacency, it was finally forcibly extinguished by Ian today. I see. At this moment, Ulu, who has been standing beside everyone, has a panoramic view of everything. Finally understanding Ian's good intentions, she couldn't help but feel grateful to him. Ian not only used the magic developer in front of him to make Gray and Leon understand the gap between them and Urrutia. At the same time, Ian also implanted a psychological suggestion into Urrutia. It makes Urrutia think that the reason she was imprisoned in the Magic Development Bureau and received the Magic Developer device was not because she did something bad, but because she was good enough. Only excellent people can withstand the stimulation of developers. People like Gray and Leon don't have the strength to accept development. Urrutia is the best of them all. And used his own strength to overcome the suffering. It can be said. Ian uses very clever lines. The inner demon that had been plaguing Urrutia's heart was lifted. Now that I've tried it. Then let me destroy this magic developer next. After you figured out Ian's good intentions, she first chuckled, then raised her hands, preparing to destroy the magic developer again. Please wait a moment. Then, Ulu was stopped by Ian again. What else is going on? You looked at Ian and asked doubtfully. Leave this magic developer to me. Ian turned to look at Ulu and spoke seriously. What do you want it for? Ulu was confused and asked in confusion. Do you still need to ask? Of course I will take it back to help my guildmates and develop their magic power. I regard all my fellow members of Fairy Tale Guild as my family. With such a good thing, how can you not think about your family? Ian said, giving a thumbs up to you and smiling. This guy is serious. He really wants to use this magic power developer to develop magic power for his companions. Are you a devil from hell? Do you really regard your guildmates as your family instead of enemies? After hearing what Ian said, Ulu felt his brain twitch slightly, and his whole body was very messy in the wind. At the same time, Ulu began to doubt Ian's previous good intentions. After all, Ian thought carefully and really thought of killing two birds with one stone with the magic developer. Let Gray and Leon recognize the reality, and let Urrutia get rid of their inner demons at the same time? Or should I say, Ian is just naive and treats Gray and Leon as guinea pigs for experiments. Are you planning to test the efficacy of this magic developer? It's hard to say at all. At this moment, Ulu didn't dare to think too much. If she thinks about it any longer, Ian's image in her mind will collapse. Then, I will take this with you. That's all. Like a walking zombie, you followed Ian and others and left the Magic Development Bureau again. Buzz. After everyone stood in the desert outside the Development Bureau, Ian suddenly clasped his hands together and mobilized the majestic magic power in his body. The next second, a huge magic circle appeared directly above the Magic Development Bureau. The sky seemed to be torn apart at this moment. A pitch-black hole suddenly formed between heaven and earth. Boom! Accompanied by bursts of roaring sounds. The entire Magic Development Bureau, this behemoth can carry tens of thousands of people. Ian was immediately taken into his own dark paradise space. Call. Fortunately, my magic power now has a qualitative breakthrough. I can't do this before receiving the simulation reward. After Ian sucked the Magic Development Bureau, which covers an area of more than 10 hectares and can carry tens of thousands of people, into his own dark space, a hint of fatigue flashed across his expression, and he rolled up his sleeves and gently wiped his forehead. Beads of sweat on the overflowing bit. Just now, at least 2% of his magic power was consumed. This is really a big waste. You have to adjust your condition quickly and replenish the lost magic power. Isn't this a bit exaggerated? When Ian took away the entire Magic Development Bureau, everyone looked at the huge sandpit that seemed to have no end in sight, and couldn't help but sigh. When will we have such powerful magic power as Brother Ian? Gray and Leon were filled with excitement, and there was excitement in their eyes. No bragging, no slander, you are all geniuses. In another 40 or 50 years, I will eventually be able to reach my current level. Ian smiled, struck Gray and Leon hard on the heads, and spoke arrogantly. Of course, this is under the condition that Gray and Leon are not cheating. If it's cheating, it's hard to say. It could take more than 10 years at the earliest, or several years at the earliest. Speaking of which, Ian himself has practiced for more than 30 years to reach his current level, including the time spent in simulation. After all, Ian is not a D***K. Just an ordinary magic genius. Humph. One day we will surpass what you can see. Gray and Leon covered their heads and swore to Ian. Then come on. I'll be waiting for you in the future. But, compared to surpassing me, or surpassing you, it would be more appropriate for you to consider ERZA as your target. When Ian said this, he looked at ERZA and ERZA. With Wooloo's talent, after picking up the heart of the devil again, it is only a matter of time before he reaches the level of Heavenly King. ERZA is also a monster that can rival Lakusis, ERZA, and Jalal, and he has a promising future. Future? As for Ulu, she keenly found the key words in Ian's words. Ian, your body has become transparent. At this time, Gray looked at Ian's body and said in shock. Chapter 19 Fist Bump after 4 years. Looks like it's time. Ian looked at his disintegrating body and murmured to himself. Ian, what on earth is going on? When Wooloo saw this, she couldn't bear it and grabbed Ian's hand that was about to disappear. However, Ulu caught nothing. This made Ulu's pupils shrink suddenly. Why? Why? You murmured to himself. Her body was trembling slightly, which showed that her heart was not peaceful. Don't panic. As I said, I don't have much time. Actually, I am not a person of this time. Now I am not disappearing, but I am going back to my time. So don't worry at all about my disappearance. Ian watched ERZA appear panicked in front of him for the first time. This emotion was completely inconsistent with ERZA's previous style. He couldn't help but smile, and then explained. Are you not from this time? Gray's eyes were filled with confusion. Yes, I accepted your commission from the future. I came here specifically to correct some mistakes. After Ian gave a simple explanation, he stopped talking about time. Future commission? Come to this timeline and correct the mistakes? So Uncle Ian, you mean, in the original timeline? At this point in time that we're at, something bad is happening, right? After all, ERZA was a person with the talent for time magic. She bit her finger gently and her brain was running rapidly. With just a few words from Ian, she was able to analyze a large amount of information. As ERZA finished speaking, everyone present fell silent. What's the bad thing? Gray thought of Daily Ura. If Ian had not come, would his town, its villagers, and his parents all have died there? Leon thought of ERZA. Before Ian's arrival, Leon's lifelong goal was to surpass ERZA. For him, the so-called bad thing is probably that he will never have the possibility of surpassing ERZA in his life. And under what circumstances will he lose any possibility of surpassing ERZA? There are only two situations. First, he died. This situation is quite acceptable to Leon. Second, Ulu is dead. Leon couldn't accept this situation at all. You thought of his daughter, Gray, and Leon. The young Urrutia looked at his mother Urrutia. She had an inexplicable premonition in her heart. Without Ian, she would have completely misunderstood her mother. So you do something you will regret for the rest of your life. Well. At this moment, Ian had to admire Urrutia's talent in time magic. After Ian sighed softly, he said firmly, "You don't need to think about what kind of tragedy happened in the original timeline. Because I will eliminate every nightmare of yours." When Ian traveled through time, he often asked himself, what does it mean to come to this world? When you have no strength, it doesn't matter if you just let nature take its course and muddle along. But after he mastered the power, he, Ian, could never sit back and watch the tragedy happen. What timeline, what plot collapse? Ian doesn't care at all. He wants to use his own hands to destroy the Fairy Tale Guild, everyone's nightmare. As for what happened in the original world, Gray and others have been burdened with so many tragedies. Gray and others don't need to know this. It is up to him, Ian, to bear these tragedies and responsibilities. As Ian's words fell, the hearts of Gray and others suddenly trembled. They felt their noses were sore and big tears could not help but rush out from their eyes. Next, listen carefully. The magic problem in Urrutia's body has not been completely solved yet. For the sake of Urrutia's body, and also to not bury Urrutia's talent, you must go to Fairy Tale, the Magister Guild, to find President Makarov. Ask him to recommend you to see a man named Warrod Sequin. Ian didn't waste time, he looked at Ulu and ordered. Are you talking about the senior Warrod who ranks among the top 10 holy magisters and has the title of King Ishgar? When you heard Warrod's name, his heart suddenly trembled. Yes. In fact, he is the founder and senior leader of our Fairy Tale Guild. He absolutely cannot sit back and ignore the problems of guild members without caring about. Ian directly revealed the secret that Warrod had hidden for many years. Wu-Lu was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect Fairy Tale to have such a background. Before you learned that Fairy Tale was related to Warrod, Fairy Tale gave her the impression that it was a guild that was extremely capable of causing trouble. Among them, especially the guy named Gildas, he offended everyone in the Ishgar continent, the light magic world and the dark magic world. So that guy is obviously known in the industry as the strongest magician west of the mainland. But he has never been awarded the title of 10 Holy Magisters by the Magic Council. It's not that Guildarts isn't strong enough, it's just that Guildarts is morally corrupt. By the way, this is also the common impression outsiders have on Fairy Tale. Ian just smiled softly, you may not believe it. The two strongest dark magician guilds on the continent of Ishgar, the Devil's Heart, the Gate of Hades, and Fairy Tale are inextricably linked. The president of Devil's Heart is their second-generation president of Fairy Tale. As for the president of Gate of Hades, in the future, Fairy Tale will also be picked up by their current president, Fairy Tale. With that said, it's no wonder that the outside world thinks that Fairy Tale is an undercover agent placed by the Dark Magisters in the Light Magister Guild. Ahem. I will join Fairy Tale in the year X775, 1 year from now. You don't need to pay attention to me, because I may not know you. If I want to completely think of you, it will probably be in X778, that is, 4 years later. So, let's meet at the Fairy Tale Guild in 4 years. Ian said, raising his illusory right hand, making a fist with his right hand, and lightly colliding with everyone in the air. Although, Ian's body has dissipated. But the fist of his heart collided with the raised hands of Gray and others. Let's meet at the Fairy Tale Guild in 4 years. Wu-Lu and others looked at Ian who was dissipating in the wind. Their eyes were already red from crying, and they shouted loudly. Simulation ends. After Ian completely disappeared in front of Ulu and others, his world suddenly became dark. When Ian's consciousness gradually returned, a system notification sounded in his mind. Rewards have been automatically distributed. The system superimposes all the magic power that Ian has cultivated in the simulation timeline onto Ian in the current time period. Besides, Ian found himself in Gray's timeline, and the souls of the killed Daily ERZA, Black Archbishop and President, Nun, as well as the entire Magic Development Bureau, were all lying quietly in the dark space. It looks like the simulation is really over. Ian opened his eyes and saw the ceiling of his villa. Ian didn't know why, but suddenly felt a little thirsty. After hesitating for a while thinking about the contents of his simulated timeline, Ian opened the bedroom door and walked towards the restaurant. When Ian walked to the restaurant, his expression suddenly froze. I saw that besides Ian, there were other people in the restaurant. That person was none other than Gray, who was preparing breakfast for everyone. After Ian saw Gray, he subconsciously raised his hand, wanting to say hello. But the moment Ian raised his hand, he seemed to have thought of something, and for a moment his expression seemed a bit hesitant. After all, for Ian, it was just a moment from the end of the simulation to now. But for Gray and others, it was a solid 4 years. Just when Ian was hesitating, Gray seemed to notice Ian, who was not far away. He slowly turned his head and looked at Ian's slightly hesitant look. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He walked to Ian silently. In front of him, he raised his fisted hand. Ian looked at Gray's movements and his expression paused. What was not done 4 years ago, should we do it now? Gray looked at Ian and smiled brightly. The moment Ian looked at him hesitantly, he knew that the Ian he was familiar with was back. It's time to do it. Ian smiled and raised his hand. Crack. 4 years have passed. The two fists finally collided. Welcome back, Brother Ian. Gray smiled and then shed tears. He had been waiting for this day for 4 years. He has waited too long. It took so long that Gray was a little afraid of the Ian who saved them all. Because time has changed, I will never come back. I'm back. Ian smiled and patted Gray's little head. Although, Ian didn't want to break this sensationalism. But, seeing as Gray misses him so much, when he has some free time, he must make good use of the magic developer to develop Gray's potential. Gray, to be honest, Brother Ian, I regret it. You'd better not come back. Chapter 20 Natsu vs. ERZA. So what happened in these 4 years? I mean, are you and the others okay? Ian was sitting in the restaurant, at the long table where everyone usually dines, holding a bottle of frozen yogurt exuding chills in his hand. While drinking, he looked at the open kitchen opposite the restaurant. Inside, Gray, who had been working hard to prepare breakfast for everyone after getting up early, asked. Actually, after you left, Urrutia asked us everything about you, although I don't know whether it was correct or not. But after that, Urrutia combined what happened in the other timeline, I mean the timeline where you accepted the commission, Brother Ian, with the time you appeared and what you did. The analysis is overwhelming. Gray paused when he said this. He seemed to have no intention of detailing to Ian the tragedy that Urrutia had analyzed that might happen in another timeline. Because Ian said, they don't need to know any tragedy. Just live happily and heartlessly. Gray will definitely live up to Ian's efforts. After you left, we stayed where we were and quietly waited for the arrival of the Magic Council. Together with the Council's investigation team and detention team, we returned the children who had been privately imprisoned by Brian to their respective families. And watched as Brian, the former director of the Magic Development Bureau, was tried by the Senate for conducting experiments on children without permission. While baking bread, Gray told the story of what happened to Brian after Ian left. As expected by Ian, facing Brian who had been crippled by him and only had half his life left, the Magic Council he was punished with life imprisonment. Note that there is a difference between life imprisonment in the Senate and life imprisonment in a regular prison. From now on, Brian will be locked up by the Magic Senate forever in a transparent magic ball with less than 1 cubic meter of space. It is illuminated by dozens of fluorescent lamps all day long, and whether it is eating, drinking, or having S**X, it must be done inside this magic ball. Outside the magic ball, the Senate taxi soldiers are under constant surveillance 24 hours a day. Yes, Brian's current life in the Senate is without dignity. Worse than the monkeys in the zoo. Brian will enjoy this kind of life until he dies. It can be said that for Brian, who wants to save face, this is more uncomfortable than killing him. At the same time, because inside the magic ball, there are spells written by word magisters using magic barrier particles that are full of force majeure. So Brian couldn't even commit suicide, he could only force himself to live, which was worse than death. This is the punishment given to Brian by the Magic Council. They want Brian to accept these punishments alive. We followed what you said and came to Fairy Tale Guild and became a member of Fairy Tale, the Magister Guild. Speaking of which, we encountered many interesting things on the way to the Fairy Tale Guild. We eliminated many dark guilds along the way, and we were even lucky enough to get to know the current member of the Magic Council, Representative Tochi Andabar. And because of some minor incidents, I went to Blackvox, the largest magical prison under the control of Counselor Toki, and stopped a premeditated prison robbery there. And I met Gildarts, who was deliberately imprisoned for some unspeakable reasons in order to complete a mission. That uncle is a monster. He is as strong as Brother Ian, I mean as strong as the one in my memory who destroyed Daily Ura. When Gray said this, he looked a little frightened. Gildarts is strong, but he went too far. In order to prevent the enemy from escaping, he destroyed half of the prison. Well, since the prisons have been destroyed, there is no way to escape. Very reasonable. He means, according to Fairy Tale Guild's logic. Of course, Gildarts also destroyed all the invading enemies, that's all. Haha. It's definitely Gildarts' style. When Ian heard this, he couldn't help but smile. To be honest, Ian has already started to have pictures in his mind at this moment. That guy Gildarts was able to perfectly eliminate the monsters that invaded the village during the mission, and was hailed as a hero by the villagers. As a result, he got too excited and got carried away. In the end, he didn't look at the road and accidentally fell while using it. The guy who shattered the magic and tore the entire village apart, was eventually regarded as a villain by the villagers and kicked out of the village. After that, I followed Urudia's instructions and stayed at Fairy Tale Guild, waiting for your arrival, Brother Ian. As for you, Urusha and Leon, the three of them got a letter of recommendation from President Makarov as you said, and then went to find Senior Warrod to practice. They have been practicing till now, and the time has come to end. Gray briefly summarized the deeds of Ulu and others in the past 4 years and told it to Ian. Thank you for your hard work. Ian said, stood up from his seat, walked directly to the still young Gray, and preached seriously. Our hard work is nothing compared to you. Gray looked at Ian in front of him and smiled softly. As long as Ian could come back, everything would be worth it. Please bring me another bottle of iced yogurt. Just when Gray was in a state of excitement, Ian placed the empty bottle in front of Gray and said with a shy smile. In this regard, Gray was somewhat silent. Well, this shameless feeling is also right. Gray was certain that the Ian he knew was completely back. Ahem. Early morning. After ERZA and others have had breakfast, Gray volunteered to stay and clean the dishes. The rest of the people followed Ian and walked towards the guild. On the way, Ian turned to ERZA beside him and kept asking, ERZA, have you ever learned magic? Return to father. Go back to Uncle Ian. I can now use dressing magic and additional magic. ERZA heard this, with a sweet smile on her face, and replied to Ian. Well, her father is caring about her again, happy. Change magic and additional magic? Ian's expression paused slightly. When Ian heard this, he was already sure. The child ERZA was raised by Irene since she was a child. After all, additional magic is a difficult magic that has been almost lost in the Ishgar continent, and not many people know it. But we still need to confirm to what extent ERZA, this kid, has mastered the magic of changing clothes and additional magic. Ian thought so, and he looked at Natsu, who looked listless and awake. ERZA, how about a fight with this guy Natsu? Ian asked looking at ERZA. This. When ERZA heard this, she glanced at Natsu beside her, looking a little embarrassed. There's a fight? As for Natsu, he was resurrected with full health after hearing that he could fight. What? Are you not confident in your own strength? Ian asked, looking at ERZA. After all, because of Ian, Natsu is stronger than he was at the same time in the original work. Follow Ian for an estimate. Even if Mira Jane successfully joins the Fairy Tale Guild a few months later according to the timeline of the original work, she may not be able to do anything to the current Natsu. No. I'm just afraid that if I accidentally kill him. In response, ERZA smiled, used the softest tone, and said the most hair-raising words. Ha. When Natsu heard this, 100 dissatisfaction flashed across his face. Don't underestimate me. I'm very strong. As he spoke, Natsu's body was wrapped in blazing flames. ERZA. Then give it a try, kid. ERZA said, a crimson magic circle lit up in her hand, and a sharp knight's sword appeared in her hand. For a moment, the atmosphere between Natsu and ERZA gradually solidified. You are listening to it in Eugene Light Novels.